I'm sure we can.
I'm not saying it's impossible to get, but it's very difficult. No, except for my protection. Okay, I just want.
We'll cover some slack this time. Considering this.
Well, good evening. It means it's 6 o'clock. Pastor Dixie, would you open with the invocation?
Tonight I'm going to read from Proverbs 3, verses 3 to 6. Let not mercy and truth forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. And so find favor and high esteem in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. So, Father God, tonight we acknowledge you. We acknowledge you as the head of this council. You promise to direct their paths, Father. That's what your word says. We don't lean on our own understanding, Lord, because we are limited. But Father, you're eternal. You are all-knowing, but you, Lord, know all things. We trust in you, Lord, to give wisdom in every decision. And so, Lord, we're going to put in you we trust on every building and every public, every car, not every car. Yeah, that'd be nice. Okay, Father, if you want to put it on every car, we'll take that too. So thank you, Father. Thank you for what you're doing in this city and in this council. Just help them in every decision they make tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. So now it's being 6 o'clock. We'll officially call this meeting to order, and just so the council is aware, Alderman Chesney is not able to make it tonight. So, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Miller?
Here.
Clem?
Here.
McClanathan?
Here.
Ross?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Busker?
Here.
Brashaw.
Here.
Keister.
Here.
And Chesney is absent.
And then with the Pledge of Allegiance, Alderman Clem, would you lead, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Alderman Clem, it's your meeting to chair.
Thank you. We've got a couple things to clean up first, if we could. Do we have any public comments on any items on the agenda?
No.
No, that's good. We would like to make an adjustment in,
Actually,
Mhm.
Alderman Clem, we need to have the approval needs to happen too. Number
before, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna put that in and tie in
Okay.
the changes with it, that's
I just
okay.
want to make sure you saw it.
Sure, thank you. In the approval of agenda, we want to take and move item number 14 into where item number 6 is. And we want to do item 6 when we do item 13. Both those are enterprise, and we'll take those up at one time, if that's okay. Could we have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
Chair,
Alderman Bradshaw?
I would like to make a motion to accept it with the revisions.
Thank you. And Alderman Keister, second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I have a couple things to bring up. First one is for reminder to the alderpersons for Thursday, September 14th for the ComEd meter ribbon cutting in the morning. I think that you probably got this document, but I just wanted to bring it up as a reminder to you. But the next thing is the most important thing today, that we need to take a look and step back and remember what happened in 9/11/11. It was one of the first times, or the first time, that we'd had a terrorist act on United States soil. There were 64 people that were killed on the plane in Flight 93. There's 125 people that were killed at the Pentagon. There were around 3,000 people killed in the towers. 246 died on planes that ran into the towers. And importantly, we lost 343 firefighters and 100 policemen as first responders on that day. So we should take, at the minimum, a moment of silence to reflect on this terrible act to our country. Thank you. The first presentation then will be item number 7, an informational presentation by Joe. You can pronounce his last name. Joe.
Good choice.
No, we're gonna do the,
We're going to do 14 first, I'm sorry. Okay, discussion on strategic planning. And that would be you, Lowell, right?
That would be me.
Thank you.
So, and Eric's in the audience too, so he's here to stand by to answer any questions.
So what I have a proposal here is for us to do, and you should have the schedule in front of you, and it's actually missing out of my binder. Okay. Oh. Yeah. So what we have is a strategic planning. It's a 3-step process. The first step would be management team. This is to look at the strategic plan. That would be the department heads, and then it would be the mayor and council to sit down with individual one-on-ones. And then sessions, basically a half day on the 13th and a 14th. We're still looking at avenues of where to do that. And then the 27th would be the final draft, the first draft of the strategic plan. And Eric and I and the department heads would get that put together. The idea here is that we've gotten through the first 100-day agenda with many of those items accomplished. Now, the idea is that we are planning for the next 5 years as well as the next 25 years as we go forward, really establishing where the council wants to take the community, and so that the department heads can build budgets and an overall plan for the city as we move forward, as well as building our capital improvement plan based upon that strategic plan. Eric, is there anything else you'd like to add to that? No. Okay. So this is a quick moving item. We wanted to present it here, the timeline for anybody, and since this is a work session of the COW committee of the whole, figured it would be presented here. We're going to be kicking it off. I handed out some documents to the staff this morning to go forward as we proceed. So I'm standing by for, Eric and I are standing by for any questions on this.
Any questions for
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Brascia?
Thank you. Manager Crowe, I see that there's a cost on here of $6,950. What
Yes.
line item is this coming out of on the budget?
Well, we will be taking it out of, and she will hate me, it'll be out of the community development budget or the, as we go forward.
Well, it is for community development too, so
Yeah.
I understand that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Alderman.
I wonder, since the presenter is in the audience, if he'd tell us a little bit about his background and a little bit about maybe some history of the company Next Level.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, everybody, Mayor and Council. My name is Eric Dregge. I'm the owner of Next Level. It's a new company, so we've been around as a company for about 6 months. Prior to that, though, I've done a number of similar planning sessions and strategic engagement sessions for all kinds of organizations. One here in Freeport, where I've spent some time actually with Collaborate Freeport, working with that group, and did a session for them about 1.5 years ago. But I've done planning for a number of nonprofits, a number of for-profit organizations. I haven't done one for a city council in the past, but I've worked with a lot of city councils and city organizations, both small and large, to do planning around more narrowly focused planning around projects and those sorts of things. This process that I designed will do a few things that'll help you begin to think about the short-term goals you have for the next 5 years, but also help you think about how your roles will change as a council and as an organization, a city organization, over time as you move into this new structure that you've taken on recently in the last few months.
And I've asked for an RFP, request for proposals, request for qualifications from 3 different planners, M45, as well as MBA here in the community, as well as Eric. I sat down with each one of them and discussed it based upon some guidelines that have been put out through ICMA for strategic planning. And Eric was the closest and was the one that actually felt like it was on target. And he's worked with Dubuque to establish their goals and priorities going forward, where the other 2 had never worked with communities at all before. And he came highly recommended as well.
Hello. Lowell, so this, I would say, comes squarely under the category of community development. Have we asked some other partners in that whole endeavor to participate in this, like certain members from NIDA or from the Visitors Bureau?
That, as part of the build-up for the session with the council, Eric's going to go out and work with the key stakeholders within the community. He and I have identified a group which I believe will grow as we go forward. And he'll be doing those interviews leading up to, he wants to do one-on-one interviews with each one of the council members as well as we go forward. And he's going to do one-on-ones with each one of the communities, and they actually, community stakeholders, and actually bring them into the staff session as well.
Thank you.
And I think we've got a list of about a half dozen organizations that Lowell has identified as key stakeholders at this point, and I'm open to that growing depending on, you know, what your needs are.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Alderman Parisha.
Thank you. Manager Crowe, can we have sent to us an email that lists those exact dates of when we're going to be doing this? Our old format here still lists like the due date of September 8th.
Yeah, so that's set out for the council. The council is down in work session for, if you go down to step 2 for work session, where it says mayor and council, this is for the department heads, and we kicked this off this morning at my talking with them at the staff meeting this morning. As start talking about the white papers.
Those dates aren't in stone yet then?
Which ones?
For the council to meet with?
It's the council dates are the feedback I got was the 13th and 14th, the only dates that worked for everybody as well as the mayor.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Keister.
Yes, Manager Crowe, the only thing I request is you have scheduled here with the one-on-ones the week of October 2nd. Latter part of that week, I will be leaving town. So if you could possibly get me in earlier on in the week so that I can participate in this, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Chair.
Alderman McLaren.
Thank you. Manager Crowe, obviously the strategic planning for the long term is very important, and it's kind of critical for setting that roadmap and then making sure we follow through on the roadmap. One of two questions here. The first one is, do you anticipate something of this nature on it being, we set it initially and then annually on a smaller basis we review it? You don't propose doing this
No.
level of planning every year, correct?
No, this is we review we pull the strategic plan out and review it on an annual basis as we go through and start the budgetary process. That's the vision as we go forward. Sitting down and doing the whole planning is normally done in the 3 to 5 year interval.
And the second part of the question then was, obviously, given its importance, we're also spending, in the broad scheme of things, not a significant sum, but it is a significant sum for this. What do you believe are the benefits of going through it under a partnership here as opposed to other forms of maybe pursuing this strategic planning amongst the departments, the council, mayor, things of that nature? What are we gaining by going through the partnership model here for the expense?
And I'm not really sure I understand the question as we go for here's the discussion I've had with FDDF, Chamber, the CVB, as well as Collaborate Freeport, and the All In. They're all waiting for council to direct them. They're all waiting and poised to go forward with their own strategic plans, but they want to know where the council wants to take the city. So I don't know if that's your question.
No, it's more of the, what do you see as the benefits of basically?
Why hire me?
Yeah.
Yeah, why hire you? I believe there needs to be an outside voice to help us facilitate moving forward, an independent person. The discussions that I've gone through for sessions, I've been through several sessions at ICMA, is if we try to do it internally, it starts getting where each person or persons have their own agenda, which is driven forward where he does not as an independent. He really is a independent source as we look forward, and it helps us strive and reach that goal. He doesn't have ties into any individual agendas as there is. Additionally, that allows somebody that is doesn't have any preconceived notions about the organization going forward.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Alderman Keister.
Yes, thank you. I must say that I'm glad to see that we're going this route with a plan. To my knowledge, there really hasn't been much of a comprehensive plan for quite a while. Well, one thing I would like to see this accomplished, or like to see this work through, is there are a lot of individual efforts to improve Freeport and to move Freeport forward. I'm hoping that with this, we can help start pulling them together and coordinating them and make a more joint effort instead of an individual effort here, one here, one here. Start bringing them all together and kind of getting us all in the same plan in the same direction.
Mr. Chair.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to one thing that Manager Crow said at the very beginning, that, we had a 100-day agenda, and most everything on that agenda has been accomplished or is at least in the works. And I really believe it's because we had a plan. So, successive cities don't just happen by accident. I really, really, truly hope that the council will go in this direction and approve this. Because we have to plan that work. The council needs to plan that work, and then it will be the manager's job to execute that and work that plan. So, let's really be visionaries and look forward to what we really want the city to look like in 5 years and down the road and further. So I really truly believe that with the help of Eric stepping on board to help us with this, that we can accomplish those things. And Alderman Keister, just on the heels of this plan, the Planning Commission, actually they're waiting to work in that direction of their comprehensive plan. So there are many fingers in this that are waiting for us to accomplish what we need to. So anyway, I just really truly believe that we need to plan that work and then work that plan. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Alderman Keister.
Maybe one more comment on this. The cost of it was mentioned several times. And the fact of the matter is, if we don't spend a little bit of money to move forward and make these plans, it's never going to happen. And I think the cost on this is minimal compared to the potential benefits to this community. And I don't see a problem with moving forward with this at all.
Sure.
Yes, Alderman Franklin.
Thank you. It's not a question of going forward with the strategic plan. You absolutely have to. Just I was looking for some clarification as to kind of what's the value added through this proposal. And in that light, how do you proceed? I see you obviously lay it out really well in regards to kind of what things would look like, what's the structure, what's the goals, and then there's also one of the phrases in there that kind of stuck out to me earlier. It's on the other documents in regards to its results-based accountability. But if you could just kind of add a little further on top of what Manager Crow said as to kind of how you see this maximizing the benefits of the strategic planning for us going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, I'll bring as Manager Crow said, a fair process so that everybody's voice is heard in an equal way. And one of the few chances where the mayor is equal to the rest of the council and the city manager's voice is equal as well. Also provide a process that allows for department managers' input who are really on the ground and have a lot of knowledge day to day. That's very important to inform a plan. At the end of the day, you all will decide what's in the plan. But I think it's a really valuable process, so that's why you see these steps laid out. So the first thing is just a great process, and I think you guys will find not only that it's informative to you in the roles that you're all in now, but it'll also inform the plan and make a very strong plan in the future. The second thing is something that came up here about, I use the word common agenda. You described the opposite, where there were a whole bunch of agendas. And so I hope what comes out of the plan is a common agenda for the city as an organization, but also so that the departments can fall in line with that and everybody else can be rowing in the same direction. But also a common agenda that the rest of the community can use. I've been sort of watching Freeport. I live over in Galena. I've been watching Freeport for 2 to 3 years. I'm excited about the progress you all are making as a community. It's been inspiring to watch, and I've had good fortune of living and working in Dubuque for the last 20 years. So I hit the highlights of Dubuque's last 40 years, right? The mayor called out what they did about 20 years ago. They put a plan in place where they started to vision the next 20 or 30 years at a time, and they revisited that vision and applied a planning process to that vision on a 3 to 5 year basis that they updated continually as they made progress. And that's what's driven their success. It gave the community a common vision. It gave all of their partners who are outside of the city and in the private sector and nonprofit sector a common place to look and understand where the community is trying to go and how they're going to get there and how they can begin to contribute in the same way. So at the end of the day, I hope to deliver on that promise of giving you a process and a plan that you can all use to implement against, whether you're a member of the city council, a department member, a staff member in the city, or a volunteer at a place like Collaborate Freeport, and get to where you've got the kind of community that competes on a regional and national stage again.
Chair?
Yes.
For Manager Crowe and Mayor Miller, I saw a couple times in the planning process documents, it had kind of a question mark. Do you want to invite community stakeholders to participate? What's your vision as to how we incorporate that?
I think it's the key, and Eric and I have talked about that. When he sent this document to me, I said, yes, they will participate in that development. Because I think they're getting their input is key to knowing where they want to take the community. And you need to have that as a council going forward to really formulate your own ideas as where you want to take the community. So we are going to participate in that. One thing is on the October 13th, we're planning, we talked about in the afternoon leading into dinner and then breaking after dinners. It's kind of delayed so the afternoon of the 13th kind of put the ideas of everybody's from his one-on-one interviews and from the staff. So then we can concentrate on the 14th on the plan, on what the vision, mission, and what our 5 to 7 strategic goals are.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I'm understanding this correctly, you're looking for approval for this, which we can't give tonight, so I would like I'll make a motion that we move this to the regular council meeting next week with recommendation to approve.
Is that what they're looking for?
I am.
But I'm going to go ahead and, if you're going to move it forward for approval, I'm going to start with the staff plan because we got to get this moving with it. So just for everybody's, the staff will be doing their white papers and starting their process as we go forward. Because even if you don't approve it, I think that's a good.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, and the reason I did it that way is being the committee of the whole, we cannot approve it tonight anyway. But I don't think there would be any problem with you starting to move forward, to at least get some of the preliminary work done.
We have a motion and a second on that, or a concurrence if we want to move forward. Some more discussion if I could. 2 things. First of all, Mayor, I appreciate your comments on this and Lowell, and I know a lot of the community that was behind the management type of government is looking forward to this. This is all ties in as part of being the one thing to help move things forward. Just have one question if I could. You mentioned that there were 2 other firms. Just out of curiosity, because, excuse me, somebody will ask us, was there quite a spread difference or there was total different, like?
So the cost was very similar between the 3 firms.
Okay.
So the difference was the approach in doing the strategic plan, and that's what sold me on Eric. MPA had never done communities or nonprofits. They were focused on business, and originally M45 didn't want to bid on it, but then they did come in and approach it, and they said, this will be our first time ever working with any type of community or nonprofit as we go forward. So some of the others that work with communities that FDDF is looking for we're in the 17 to 20,000, and I wasn't going to approach them. So.
No, I appreciate that explanation. Eric, thank you for your comments and everything. We appreciate it. So do we want a voice vote to move it forward then? Is that what we'd be looking for? Or are we just looking for a head nod or yada yada? Or?
I think you need a vote.
Okay, let's do a voice vote on moving it forward. All in
Chair,
favor?
I'm sorry,
Sure.
was there a second?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, ready to catch up? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you very much. We appreciate your help. Now we're going to move to, I believe we're going to move to item number 7. Informational presentation by Joe Koreski, Midwest urbanologist for LLC Economic Development. How bad did I butcher your last name?
Very close. My parents told me it was Irish. I don't believe them. Last name is Kaczarski.
Okay.
No. Top corner. Nope. Yeah. Okay, good. Again, thank you for inviting me here this evening. My name is Joe Kaczarski. I am the owner, the person at Midwest Urbanologists. I have 25 plus years as a retail real estate executive. These are some of the retailers that I've done real estate work for. Next slide. I have done over 550 real estate transactions for new locations in 42 different states in Puerto Rico. In the process of doing that, not every site is a winner, so I've been in at least 1,500 markets doing market analysis and market research. I've actually put together real estate programs for new concepts, and I've also worked on 5 or 6 different public-private partnerships, mostly with Costco Wholesale in the Southeast. I was born in Northwest Indiana and have a degree in landscape architecture from Purdue University with graduate level work in urban economics, urban planning, market analysis, and real estate investment. The advantage of Midwest urbanologists. There's big companies out there that do the same thing. What I do is I do retail consulting and retail recruitment for communities. My advantages with my company is I'm only going to have 5 clients. So you would be one of 5. That means you get a lot more customization, a lot more one-on-one interaction. I'm there for you, much more visible. The big guys, you'll be one of 25 to 35 per client manager. I will be in your market at least 4 times each year. They promise they'll be in your market at least once. And my focus is in the Midwest only. Where this is critical is when you start thinking about some of the retailers, even retailers and restaurants you have here in Freeport. Culver's is not national. The biggest guy who's expanding right now in the Midwest is Myers. They're not national. Menards is not national. So it's the knowledge of who these regional companies are in the Midwest, and also the ability for me to come in and find not just the big national names, but also the guys that are in Northern Illinois, Southern Wisconsin that are looking to grow, and finding sites for them in Freeport as well. So it's basically 3 things I'm going to be doing is, number 1, like I talked about, it's proactively recruiting new retail, new restaurants to Freeport. And that's not just anybody, that's the retailers that you are most interested in, and also those retailers who are best suited to your market so that they have the highest probability of success here. So that way you're not having a retailer come in, they fail in a couple of years, and you bring in somebody new. Next slide, please. The second thing I'm going to do is the supply side. What is the real estate that you have in Freeport that's available for development, redevelopment? What are the commercial properties? What's their highest and best use? Who are the best users for these properties? And the third is to provide you with current and ongoing information about your market, what the trade area is of your market, what the demographics are, what the psychographics are, what dollars in which retail categories are being spent outside of Freeport, and identifying which categories those are. And it all comes down to being proactive versus reactive. And for example, what I was doing here is I wanted to break up proactive versus reactive into 3 different groups: the retailers, the cities, and the developers. This is the actual real estate department for Culver's. And as you can see, all the colored states are where Culver's is currently operating. And their real estate department consists of 3 people. So with that vast territory that those 3 gentlemen are covering, you know that they're not going to every city and town in all those states to find the best locations for Culver's. If they do, they don't have a family life, they don't have anything else but being on the road 24/7. So what they do, next slide, is they're reactive. And the way it works for every retailer is they have a capital budget for new locations each year. We typically look at any retailer that's growing by more than 50 locations a year as a high growth retailer. But what they're doing is they're mostly reactive. Developers call them about a site that they're building, or brokers call them about a piece of property or a building that's available. That's what gets them interested in new markets, and that's how they select the markets. So what they will do, next slide please, is they will select the number of sites for their annual goal. If it's 30, they're going to go out and probably select 35 sites for the next year, because they'll figure that a few of them won't happen. But when you start doing the math, if it's a nationwide company and they're going by 30 stores next year and there's 50 states, then Freeport must be one of those 30 nationwide. And the way that happens is by being proactive and not waiting for them to come. Next slide. So from a city's perspective, when you're reactive, typically it happens when the developer shows up in the permit office and says, I want to build this here. And when that happens, the developer has already selected who the tenants are going to be for that development. He's pretty much selected the design for that development. And so long as his development complies with your city codes and ordinances, you have limited ability to influence what the developer wants to do. Next slide. And then from a real estate perspective, the developers or the brokers, if you look at the signs on the 4 leased buildings that you have in this community now, they're for brokerages that are in Chicago or the suburbs or in New York or someplace else. The ability for a commercial real estate person to make a living only on the Freeport properties is probably limited. So that's why these landowners, these property owners, are working with brokers from other parts of the country. So this broker, this listing he has in Freeport might be one of 3-4 dozen listings he has. He's waiting for his phone to ring. It's a tenant-driven process, a user-driven process. When a user calls that broker or that landlord and says, I'm interested in your property, that's when things start to happen. Next slide. So how is it being proactive with my company? Next. First of all, let's talk about your goals for your community and what a vibrant retail restaurant business brings to you. It's number 1, it's quality of life. Number 2, a vibrant community is more attractive to potential employers. One of the first things that companies do now when they come to a market is they're looking and analyzing how easy is it going to be to attract and retain talent if they locate in that community. And with the new millennials, and we all love the new millennials, they do not move to chase jobs. They select where they want to live, and then they figure out how to support themselves in that selection. So more and more more and more employers are looking at locating where they can attract the talent and retain the talent that's going to make them successful there. And Illinois got some great examples of that. Caterpillar pulled their corporate offices out of East Peoria and moved them up to Chicago, and ADM did the same thing with Decatur and moved up to the Chicago area. It's because they felt it easier to attract the people that they needed in the Chicagoland market than they did in these other communities. Downtown vibrancy. And then from your perspective, there's also budget advantages. Reduced expenses, you don't have to worry about blighted properties. And the second is increased revenues. You've got 1.5% local sales tax you retain. So every dollar that's leaving Freeport and going to somewhere else is part of the sales tax revenues that you're losing to some other community. So what I do is I actually go out and talk to the deal makers for these retailers, the selected retailers. And so that's the next line. And what I do to find out who those retailers should be is, first of all, we'll define your trade area. Trade area is not going to be your municipal boundaries. The most effective way we have right now for identifying trade areas is we're using cell phone locational data. And so, not to get too big brother on you, but I can draw a polygon somewhere just, around something, let's say, for example, the Walmart parking lot. And I can identify the cell phones that are within that polygon during a specified period of time. And then by watching, or then also identifying where those cell phones are stationary at night, I can deduce where those cell phones live. It's anonymous, I'm not getting any user information, I'm tracking the device. But I can also track the device to find out people that are leaving Freeport and where they're going. I can also use that same cell phone technology to say, here's the trade area for Walmart. That's not going to be the same trade area for your downtown. That's not going to be the same trade area for your West End. And so when I'm talking to retailers, I can't tell them that they're going to have, if they're looking at a location downtown, I can't tell them that it's the same trade area as Walmart. They're going to want to know what the trade area is for the downtown. And that's the data that we'll provide them with. And then once I know that trade area, I can get the demographics and the lifestyle segmentation, et cetera, for that trade area. So it gives a very good profile of who the customer is within that trade area for any retailer or restaurant. You can also identify the dollars per retail category that are leaving the market. So automotive supplies or building materials or furniture or electronics. I'll generate a report that will show you how many dollars per category or retail category is leaving. Where that's important is that you want to bring in new businesses that aren't just transferring dollars from an existing business to the new one. You want to capture those dollars that are currently leaving and keep them in town. So that's where the leakage report comes in, very beneficial. And then I talked about the submarkets already, as far as the downtown and the West End being different submarkets that we can get a lot more data and information on. It's not just, I'm also after your input. This is your community, it's your vision, your goals. So we want to know who you want. We'll do, I'll do some surveys to find out. We'll keep it realistic. And I'll tell you right here and right now, you're not going to get a Costco and you're not going to get a Trader Joe's. But that's part of the realism that you have to keep with this. And it's managing expectations, but it's also getting the highest and best use out of your commercial real estate. You only have so many properties in Freeport. So you want to generate the best you can from the properties you have. We're also looking at knowing what your community growth is, the amenities, and finding out about that, because that's important to prospective retailers as well. And then the last thing I'll do is I will compare Freeport to other communities in the Midwest. Do an analog. What do they have that you don't have? It's a very easy sell to a retailer and say, hey, you're in these 4 markets. Here's Freeport. It's just like the other 4. You're not there yet. And it's that type of analog that's easy to do. From a retailer's perspective, what they're looking for the most when they select a new location is, number 1, return on investment, and number 2 is reduction of risk. So the more data we can give the retailer about making a selection for this community, the more we reduce the risk of them making that decision. And then lastly, neighboring markets, they're your competitors. If the dollars aren't being spent here, they're going somewhere else. And so it's very beneficial to know how you fit into the regional scope of things and how you can improve to keep more of those transactions in town. So it's identifying your community goals, identifying target retailers, and creating a going forward strategy. This which would be done in a work session with whomever Freeport wants to work on it. But it's a collaborative thing. The reason I'm only doing 5 clients is because I used to work for one of the big guys. And when you're doing 25 to 35 clients, it's very superficial. With only 5 clients, I can do a deep dive into what's going to work for Freeport and what's going to be successful here. Next slide. So then I implement the strategy, and it's through active retailer recruitment. With 25 plus years in the industry, it's a relationship industry. I know people that work for a myriad of companies. It's also going to retail conferences, retail real estate conferences. I'll be in Chicago in 2 weeks. There's a trade group called ICSC, International Council of Shopping Centers. They have regional events. The one in Chicago is in 2 weeks. I'll be there talking to retailers. The national one is in Las Vegas in May. It's called Recon. Last year there was 38,000 attendees there. Prior to 2007, when there was a downturn in the economy, there was 68,000 attendees, and it's all retail real estate people. So the second thing is providing the city with insight on your commercial real estate. You want highest and best use. That's why you get, that's the best way you're going to reduce your expenses, have a vibrant community. And the way I'll do that is working with the existing owners. Now you're going to have different groups of owners in the community. Some are going to be very savvy regarding development, redevelopment, re-tenanting properties. Other owners of real estate are there just to collect the rent checks each month, and when they sell it, they want to make a profit. But as far as redeveloping the property or putting additional capital into the property or the buildings, that's not their forte. So when we run into instances like that, it's going back through my connections and finding real estate investors who are interested in investing in properties and making the additional capital investment to put new retailers in. Manager Crowe spoke to me previously about some downtown incentives. You have some streetscape programs and some other design elements that you're working on for your central business district. It's very beneficial to work hand in hand with them, so that way when design elements are put into place, that they are going to be complementary to the retail uses that are going to be down there, retail restaurant uses. So that way it becomes more of a vibrant, more walkable downtown. And that's what's very important right now. And then the last thing is we're not going to neglect the existing businesses. That same cell phone study can be used on every existing business in this community to help them understand who their client is. Certainly some of the data is going to be a lot less than it will be in other studies, but if you have an in-town business who says, I just don't understand what my trade area is, we can do that for you. It's not a problem. And the last thing is the current projected market data. Go ahead, next. And that's market demographics and psychographics, and they're updated as needed. The data on purchasing, which is the same data the big boys use, by the way. None of the big boys generate their own demographic data. They're buying it from third-party vendors like Esri and some of the others. The data I'm buying is updated quarterly. And we're now 7 years past the last decennial census, so it's very important to have fresh data. And that's current year forecast, future year projections. Everything I'm going to be doing is going to be customized for you. It's not going to be stock products that, you know, that if it works for you or if you can squeeze into what the stock product is, then you're fine. This is all customized for you. And then the data and research can be used for a lot of different things, in addition to retail and restaurant development. I worked with a client in Ohio who's going for a state grant for a park he had in his community. And he wanted to prove part of the application was to prove it was a regional park. Another cell phone study. Drew a polygon around the park, tracked where all the people who were using the park were coming from. He got his money because it was a regional park. That's the presentation. Please ask me questions. This is a very complex thing. There's been a lot of stories in the paper about bricks and mortar retail being, you know, going out and everything, and that's not the case. So please ask away.
We'll get some lights on. And first I have to tell you, Joe, that that was probably one of the best common sense presentations that I've ever seen.
Thank you. I'm not a salesperson. I'm the guy who does all the work.
No, it laid everything out very well. When I was going through this, I looked at it and thought, boy, there is really a lot of interesting stuff in there that would really be beneficial to the city of Freeport. But I'd like to open it up for questions. Or Manager Crowe, do you have any comments beforehand?
Yeah, I have worked with both retail Coach and Buxton, and I will tell you that because they're such a big firm, they're hit and miss. They're really focusing on communities that are the Rockford sizers or even Chicago's, where they're geared toward. And that was one of the things that attracted me. And this was a discussion as we go forward, as we're coming up on NIDA's contract renewal, is do we continue on down the path with NIDA, or do we make it a mix between the two? And that was a discussion I wanted to have with council. And I know that our economic and community development director is sitting behind the camera, and she and I have had that conversation. And we're coming up on NIDA's contract renewal here, so that was, I wanted to, Joe's unique. This is he worked for Retail Strategies, who were present in the Midwest, but then decided to pull out of this area. So they've pulled back into their southern roots. So those are the big three: are Retail Coach, Retail Strategy, and Buxton.
And what the big three are really good at is generating reports for you. So they can fill up a shelf or two, you know, on your bookcase. But really the goal here is not to know what the problem is. The goal is to have a solution that works for you, that's a long-lasting solution. And it's not just bringing in somebody that's going to fail or not be there, 2 years from now. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Of course, the first one is obvious because you just repeat the process. But the second one is that the majority of retailers that are over 25,000 square feet, I would say 90% of the retailers over 25,000 square feet will not use somebody else's building. They want their own building for efficiencies. So if you bring in the wrong retailer, or the wrong retailer comes here just because of reactiveness, and they are not successful, then it's twice as hard to find somebody else to take that building, especially if it's over 25,000 square feet.
Mr. Chair.
Let me mention one thing, if I could, first, Alderman Keister. One of the things, especially for myself that's been around here a couple days, one of the things that you mentioned that really opens your eyes up is the fact that you said 2017, we're working with data that's 7 years old. Mm-hmm. We can all remember the census just like it was yesterday. Well, it wasn't yesterday, it was 7 years ago. So a lot of things really have changed in that period of time. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely, yes. And I'll say one other thing about Freeport, because I've toured the market a few times again today. You have an atypically laid out commercial corridor because you have floodplain that's separating the two big boxes who couldn't find a place to go north of the floodplain, so they went south of the floodplain. And so for a lot of retailers who will come and look at the market, because it's atypical and because they don't have the data, the information to really make an informed decision, they'll pass on it and they'll go somewhere else. That's the challenge you have. And Manager Crowe and I talked about this. It's, most communities that have a highway bypass around them, the bypass is a lot closer to the city than it is here. And what you'll see is the first location that Walmart will want to take is that interchange up by the bypass and the main artery coming into town. They went on the opposite end of town because that's where the existing retail synergy was. But then they had to go south of the of the river because of the floodplain to get out of that. So it creates somewhat of a different market, which is going to need a lot more hand-holding, a lot more data to get retailers comfortable with Freeport.
Thank you.
Alderman Keister? Thank you. Kind of reflecting on what Alderman Clem said a little bit is we've had several presentations from similar type companies, and this is one of the more impressive ones. This is something that over the years I've talked to the two mayors I've served under that we're supposed to try and move this forward to get a retail consultant like this in, unsuccessfully so far. And at this stage now, when we're going into a planning stage to decide what this town is going to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, I feel that having something like this working with us to bring retail in here, to help bring more people in here, is something that has to go hand in hand. Now, I think it's something we need to pursue further. Of course, you know, we have to work with the idea of NIDA and what we're going to do there. I think the big turning point or decision point on this would be, and I know you probably can't see anything right now, but how much is this going to wind up costing us?
It's, I have a proposal into Manager Crowe. It's $50,000 a year. And that includes everything, includes my travel expenses getting down here. Just so you know, I live in Wisconsin outside of a city that has a football team. Won't mention any names.
Mayors that played soccer.
Okay, you're hired.
Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And so for that $50,000, everything you laid out here tonight is what will be included in that?
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's no extras. So like I said, if you want additional demographic reports run or reports run for individual businesses in your community, that's all included.
Okay.
Yeah, it's everything is there. That includes my going out to Vegas and marketing Freeport and representing you and talking to retailers out there and everything else. Yeah.
One final follow-up.
Go ahead.
Since we're in the stage of doing our planning and stuff, would this be something that you feel would be started now, or should we wait until the point where we get a good idea of what our plan is going to be for the city and then move forward at that time?
I think it should be done simultaneously because there's a lot of things that are going to influence the type of retail that you can bring in. For example, Manager Crowe and I talked about the downtown and design elements that you put in place and things that you do to the downtown, whether it's streetscapes, sidewalk improvements and things like that. That's going to dictate what types of retail restaurants are going to be interested in those spaces. And so knowing what types of retail restaurants are most, have the highest probability of success in Freeport based off of your market, your demographics, how it's growing, et cetera. That's going to also lend itself to you're going to take that in consideration when you start doing design elements and other things as far as a comprehensive plan or just an overall perspective on the city.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Busker?
Yes, I know you can't give any specifics on this, but typically in a town our size, and I don't know what research you've done on our demographics already, but what are some examples of some, you said too that we would not be qualified for? What are some examples of the types of businesses we would most likely be able to look at when people are saying, oh, we want this, we want this, we want this?
Yeah, there's I have a few ideas, but I have to do more research on them to see if they would actually, you know, bear out. But one of the categories I think that is lacking, that is a high growth category right now, is fast casual restaurants. You have Applebee's and only a couple others, but that's quite a large category now, and it's a growth category. If you look at the fast casual restaurant category, probably around 40% of the fast casual restaurants weren't in business 10 years ago. And that's mainly because of the millennial generation. Some of the old guard restaurants that we grew up going to we always read that they're hurting because they haven't changed, they haven't adapted to the new demographics and what they're looking for. Same is true with a lot of the retailers. Case in point, I heard an ad this morning coming down here. I'm sorry, it was this morning on television for Kmart. That was advertising their Jacqueline Smith line of clothing. Now the favorite consumer for an apparel store is female 16 to 26. How many female 16 to 26 are going to know who Jacqueline Smith is? And that's part of the problem with retail right now, is that so many of them have been really late to understand changes in the millennial demographic and how that's changed how they're, how they should market and their product lines, etc. So e-commerce, yeah, it's a factor, but there's so many other factors that are weighing into it, and there are successes out there. And the best example I can give you is Best Buy. Easiest example, Best Buy 10 years ago, everyone was talking about them going the way of Circuit City, mainly because they were being showroomed. Showroom is a concept where people go in, they see the model they want, then they go home, find it online, and they buy it there. So Best Buy did three things. Number one, use their market clout to get the manufacturers to create models. Well, first thing they did was they matched any online price. So that took away the online pricing advantage. Second thing they did was they went to their manufacturers, the guys who were supplying them with electronics, and had them create special model numbers just for them. So if you went into Best Buy and showroom something and then went home to find it online, the only place you could find that model was at Best Buy. Third thing they did, which e-commerce cannot do, is customer service. The Geek Squad. Who owns the Geek Squad? Best Buy. If you go in and you buy a $3,000 home entertainment system, and you need somebody to hook it up.
I'm a policeman, come on.
But the example is they own Geek Squad. So this is something they can include as part of the sale, give you a reduced price on sending their techs out there to hook it up for you.
I'm still thinking about Buffalo Wild Wings.
That's fine. That was, between you and me, I was thinking the same thing when I was driving today. So, yeah, Buffalo Wild Wings is a good example of somebody who's not here that's actively growing. Yes, so. Alderman Brasher?
Thank you. Manager Crow, you gave us a lot to think about by calling this gentleman here, and I think he's smart. He actually put a picture of his dog on his...
That's my office assistant.
And I think he knows generally Americans think people are friendlier if they put a picture of dogs on their advertising. So I thought, this guy must be kind of smart here. So anyhow, I think we're looking at like long-term contracts that he's looking at, and Manager Crowe wants us to consider an either-or remedy with NIDA, or an and, either or an and. But Manager Crowe, my question I guess is for you, is when you're looking at these two different marketing structures like NIDA or Mr. Kaczarski's, the Irish guy, Midwest urbanologist, what do you consider the major difference between NIDA's look and effect and Midwest urban?
NIDA is, so NIDA will tell you, because we've had this discussion, we actually had this discussion with NIDA today, is that they are existence within the market, and they know the retailers that are here and developers. But my feeling is that NIDA's focus is not on retail. They're on, it's less focused on retail development and more on development of the commercial and developing the relationships. I think they go hand in hand. But so that the question is as we're paying $100,000 to NIDA, and this is a $50,000, do we need to readjust how we're going forward with this as we go forward? I believe they can go hand in hand. I think there's a place for both of them as we go forward, but it's really becomes an issue of the funding of these two projects. I will tell you, Dave made a strong pitch to Nancy and I when he saw this was on the agenda today, as to why we don't need to bring him in here, urbanologist, because he feels that he knows the market and knows what's going on here.
If I could just add to that, having been on the NIDA board for a number of years, that is a distinct difference as a retail and the factories, the small industry, all that kind of support. But you have to remember one other thing, that as we've looked at the retail, and remember one of the things, one of the benefits besides jobs the retail brings in is the sales tax end of it. So that, as we know, when we brought in Walmart and Menards, you know, that was a big jump there. The other thing that we have to work on is finding that blend between retail and manufacturing and everything, which is extremely important, you know. But those are just some of the main differences. Each one of them has their own forte.
Mr. Chair.
Let's give Peter a chance here.
Couple questions.
Thank you.
First off, you mentioned it earlier in your presentation that you completed some public-private partnership projects. Could you highlight what that looked like?
They were TIF projects. Basically, they were both Costco deals, and the typical Costco project is somewhere between the $33 and $38 million range, full project all in. These were situations where the one was in a community called Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, which is just south of Chattanooga, Tennessee. I had a $4.5 million gap in what I could afford and what the project cost was. So what I did was I went to the city and the county and said, what if you treated this like a spec, like you do for a spec industrial park, where you did the off-site improvements, you rough graded the site, you brought utilities to the site, $4.5 million worth of work, and we'll build out the rest of it. Again, Georgia is a sales tax revenue state. Their case was that they were keeping 3% local. They took out a $5 million bond, and they retired the bond in 3.5 years. The second location was Augusta, Georgia. And with Augusta, it was a project where I got financing. In that case, it basically worked out to where Costco built the building and fixtures, et cetera, and the city picked up the rest of it. And then the other cases where I did some TIF projects for Shopko. I did one out in a thriving community of Salmon, Idaho. It's 2 hours from nowhere, and you can't get there from here. But it's a gorgeous community, and the store's very successful. But again, in that case, it was a TIF financing project where we used some sales tax, property tax financing to do it. Did the same thing on a couple projects up in Minnesota for Shopko Hometown.
No follow-up then. And this is kind of for Manager Crow, just, you don't need to discuss it tonight, but one of the things that was just on my mind as we're going forward is when we talk about the cell phone data, the demographic info, the leakage studies, et cetera, how much of that is something that, one, we have access to or we're not utilizing, or two, we just don't have access to? Like I said, you don't need to get into that too much tonight, except for how much you want to.
Well, the ESRA data is available. Some of it's processing. It is available out there. Cell phone is harder to get onto it, but again, it's the processing and identifying the areas and markets you want to go into. One of the things that they do bring into it, and which he didn't talk, is the contact, or you touched on it, contacts at ICSC and Recon when we're starting to make those contacts as we go forward. Honestly, a lot of these retailers don't want municipal members there when we're making initial contacts. And it's nothing against elected officials and myself. We have real problems keeping secrets within the community.
When I worked for the retailers, I never wanted to speak to a public official because they were public. And because of that, they were limited as to what information they could keep confidential. And if a project tanked because word leaked out, and typically if word gets out that you're looking at property, then the land valuation or the price of the dirt goes up quickly. Don't know why, but when that happens, the person who gets the blame is the real estate guy. And so that's why the real estate guys always like to keep it as quiet as possible. The only time it was ever successful was in Fort Oglethorpe. The mayor down there was phenomenal, and just a very good partner in the project. And we kept it quiet until, I think it was when the plans were, no offense, the plans were put into the fire department for the sprinkler system, work it out. But,
One final question.
Sure.
As we're going forward over the next weeks and months here, and then looking at all this stuff, what would you say would be the top 2 things you'd want us to remember when considering your services?
The number one thing is that everybody is looking now for vibrant communities. And that's potential employers, et cetera. I don't think that, I think that retail restaurant growth is a very critical component of any economic development program that you're trying to put together. Because again, when you're competing for new employers, you're competing with all these other cities and towns out there. And the people that are now doing new site selection for these employers are looking for places where their people will want to live when they transfer people in management positions. And they're looking for people that will work for them, will be quality workforce and that will be there. And the key to that is recreation, shopping, dining, and entertainment. And 3 of those are retail restaurant.
Thank you.
Alderman Keister, did you still have? Yeah, I just wanted to make a statement to build on with NIDA. And Alderman Clem, maybe you can help me out on this if I'm wrong, but until a few years ago when we brought in consultants for retail sales, NIDA made a statement that they don't look for retails. They're going after retail businesses was a fairly recent thing. And it just seemed to coincide when we had another company come in and talk about retail. So I would personally have no problem maybe splitting the money and going with a company like this and letting NIDA concentrate on manufacturing, and let's get somebody in that's really going to go after the retail that's going to help us out immediately.
Any other questions? Madam Mayor, anything you'd like to add? Okay. Joe, I appreciate your presentation. One other thing that I'd like to add, kind of on what Peter said here, what are the couple things that makes your company stand out or where you come forward? I think one of the biggest ones that impressed me was I work for 5 people at a time. I don't work for 25, 50, 1,500. I look after 5, so I know we've got a lot of discussion on this financially down the road, and we'll take it up, but excellent job. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. Enjoyed it.
Make sure you have a safe trip back. Please leave some cards. Just walk around, drop them off.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Is there any action that we need on this, or we're
No, I wanted to bring this in going forward because we are in contract negotiations with NIDA right now. And I know I've had discussions with some of you, and I wanted to kind of have, as we go forward, look at the options. I want to have all the options for the council as we sit down and figure out what we're doing with NIDA. Joe, if you could also give one to our Community Economic Development Director back there.
the camera person?
The camera person, yeah, my third team here. So as we have this discussion, I want to make sure that you have everything going forward with this and have all the information. So
appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 8, informational presentation by Sean Hamilton and Dave Cook from Arthur J. Gallagher and Company regarding health insurance.
I believe it's just Dave Cook and it's Sean in the audience.
Yes, well, thank you for having me here tonight. It says report present to that one. There you go. Yeah, we have it up. Good. Just to give you a little background on myself, my name is Dave Cook. I have been involved in local government since 1983. 4 years ago, I retired as the village manager of Hinsdale, after 31 years in local government, starting as a bean counter from the city of Carbondale. So one of the things I'm going to say is, and I'm going to save it for the last two slides. You talked a lot about money tonight, about spending money. Well, I'm here to hopefully help you save money. And you know, like I said, I can say a whole lot of things, but you know, numbers don't lie, and I'll keep those to the end. So if you want to, what is the IPBC? It is a wonderful acronym for the Intergovernmental Personal Benefit Cooperative. It just flows off the tongue. But what we are is an intergovernmental agency. We have been around since 1979. This is created through the Illinois Intergovernmental Cooperation Act, just like many of the fire and police organizations that work together. I'm sure the city of Freeport is a member of a lot of IGAs for different purposes. We are governed by the state of Illinois. The Department of Insurance and the Department of Labor are the ones who we report to. We are, as I say, an executive director and member driven. But I think this is one of the things that really sets us apart from an ordinary broker type relationship with an insurance company. We are a member organization. And in return, we provide the life and health benefits, but we ask back the membership involvement from all of our members. We consider ourselves a financial vehicle, not so much a health insurance company. We are very conservatively funded in reserve. We have over $106 million in reserve. Part of the regulations we have every year is we file a reserve requirement report with the Department of Insurance. And this year's report was that not only did we have sufficient reserves, but we were very adequately funded. One of the great things for the city of Freeport and all our members, we preserve your plan design. We can port your plan design 100%, so your employees have the same benefits they have with anyone else. All of our public sector vendors are the top notch. Sikich is our auditor, Miller Cooper is our accountant, Ansel Glink does our legal work. Our Arthur J. Gallagher Company is our exclusive administrator broker. Our our money is invested by Michigan and Fifth Third, so all very top-notch companies, and that's part of my job as an executive director, to make sure that we run a professional organization. We now have just surpassed the $250 million mark in our budget, so we're at $250 million and growing. One of the things that we will tell you is we are very, very transparent. Whether you're our smallest member of 10 lives or our largest member of 1,200 lives, you're going to get the same information. You're going to get the same treatment. We're going to make sure that you understand where you stand, and you get to see all the information not only for your community, but for all the other communities in the IPBC. And I'm going to show you how we are very stable, budgetable, and predictable as we move forward. Currently, and one of the reasons Sean was not here tonight, or Greg, we had 3 different board meetings to cover tonight. He went to Effingham County, downstate. Currently, we have 130 members. Just so you understand, I became the executive director 4 years ago of the IPBC. We had 69 members. In the last 4 years, I think it's pretty easy to math. We've added 51 members, and this year we are likely to, we have about a couple other who are still in the decision process making, but for this plan year, we will either have added 17 or 18 new members throughout the state of Illinois. If you can turn to the next slide. As we've reached out, initially we were pretty much a Chicago-based network. Over the last 5 years, we really have extended across the state of Illinois. You can see we have a pool called CHI, Southern Illinois Health, which is about 9 communities around the St. Louis area. Just in the last year, this part of the state, we've really been successful in bringing a lot of new members in. It was initially called QCHIP, the Quad Cities Health Insurance Pool. Kelowna, East Moline, Lee County, Princeton, Washington, We'll be talking with a couple other communities in the area very soon, but this is the group that we would likely put Freeport into should they decide to come into the IPVC. As I said when I started, obviously it's all about numbers. Over the last 5 years, the IPVC on the PPO side has averaged a 2.2% increase in premiums while giving back surplus. And when I say give back surplus, it's a very simple formula. We take in all the premiums, pay out the bills, and what's left goes back to the members. As I mentioned at the start, we have over $106 million in reserves. Every single cent of that goes back to a member. IPVC does not have any dollars for itself. Obviously I get paid, obviously the brokers get paid, but every cent of our reserve can go back in the audit. You can look in the line item and see which member it's attributable to as they've, and that money is available to the members for whatever they want to use it for. They can use it for future rate relief. We had just recently the City of Hanover Park took $1.5 million in reserve to pay off their police department bill. So you can, it's your money. You can use it as you want to. Turn to the next page. Can't really see this one, but basically what I was trying to make a point here is that there are some differences in the annual increases. There's a formula, but over time, all the members come back to that average of 2.2%. Of all the members, you can see, it's kind of hard to tell, but you know, they are very, very close to that average. So let me just skip to the next page. One of the other possibilities for the city of Freeport, if they wanted to, they currently do not offer an HMO program, but there is a vibrant HMO program in the Rockford area that some of your employees, if you so chose, could take advantage of. And actually, this plan is even did better than the HMO, I mean the PPO side, and has averaged 1.5% over the last 5 years, and giving back a dividend on an annual basis of over 6%. So it's a good option if look forward if you want to do something different in the future. This banded layer is one of the reasons members do not leave the IPVC. And that's a question we always get. When was the last time a member left? Well, the last time a member left was 2007 or 8, if I remember right. And it was due to a manager changing positions and a little, they went back to the local broker, just to be very honest, how it happened. But you go, yeah, stay right there for a second. Nope, banded layer. This is the thing that not only do we can provide you some very good rates, but we're taking you out of the risk business. And the reason why no one leaves the IPVC, we take the catastrophic claims and make them a fixed cost. Each member, and I should know the number, but very likely in your current scenario, you're liable for claims probably somewhere in the $75,000 to $100,000 level.
It's $100,000. $100,000. With IPVC, the community will only be liable for the first $35,000. We cap it that way. We currently have over 17,000 employees and nearly 50,000 dependents that we cover throughout the state of Illinois. We cannot tell you how many catastrophic claims Freeport will have, but from an actuarial standpoint, we know that on 17,000 lives, that 3% of our total costs are going to be in that level over 35,000 to our stop loss level. We take that and charge it back on a per employee per member basis as a fixed cost. What this does, it gives you stability and budgetability. You don't see big peaks and valleys in your rate increases because, you know, sorry, you had 2 cancers last year. You had a preemie baby. Those are all taken out of the equation. And you get a very much smoother, flatter predictability in your rates. As I mentioned about transparency, one of the things we'll provide every member, and we publish this about 20 to 25 days after the end of the month,
We just published it for the month of August a couple weeks ago. No, I mean for July a couple weeks ago, a month I'm in. 150-page report giving you details on every community, every member. It will show you how you compare against the IPBC, how you compare what your reserves are, what your loss ratios will be. This is a great one-page report for the council so they can see how they are doing in their own instances versus the IPBC or the subpool if you're in a subpool. So it's a really nice monthly report for everyone to see. Some of the differences, obviously we are not a typical broker type relationship. We are a member organization. We are very proactive. What you're gaining is the wisdom of 130 city managers, finance directors, HR directors. We meet quarterly, we meet throughout the state of Illinois. Again, very important, you become Blue Cross or anyone else can't tell you what your plan design can be. That is the agreement we have with them. With our 17,000 employees, we have a lot of clout. And one of the clouts we have is that members can design their own plans. They keep their plans. They are in charge of their plan designs. Another thing, access to information. We have our own website. Every member can get on the website. They can see the plan designs. They can see what other communities are charging their copays. A lot of the information that you may want to see is out there at your fingertips. Purchasing power. One of the things we met last week with the insurance committee, and I made the statement, I've made it many times, I've offered anyone dinner for two anywhere in the country if they can beat our life insurance rates. No one has come close. With our quote, your life insurance rates will about be cut in half. It's because we have a direct contract for 17,000 employees with Standard Life, and we get the best rate you can get. It's the same thing with our, on the prescription side, we have a direct contract with Express Scripts. We get the best discounts. We get the best contract concessions. One of the things you're also going to get is a dedicated municipal service team. We have an exclusive contract with Arthur J. Gallagher. Part of that contract is as we grow, every 1,300 lives, I get another representative. I'll guarantee you that you will have a 3-person dedicated team. All they do is local government business. They can talk about CAFRs. They can talk about placebo. All the things that the nuances of local government, they understand and handle on a daily basis. I think, some of the conversation we've had, that I showed you that we're budgetable, predictable, and stable. Again, we are very open, full disclosure. Some of the intangibles that, in addition to, the health and life, we have included in the rates. Everything is included. There's no supplementals. Everything's included. We're going to pay all your ACA fees. There's a wellness program that's included in the premiums that will pay up to $100 per eligible employee for health assessment flu shots. And then based upon your participation, you can get back from $100 to $400 per person for incentives for future programs. Just coming in today, I heard that now of over 70% of health plans in the country now contain a viable wellness program, and you're seeing the results and you're seeing the payback. And we believe very strongly in it. This is our 5th year of a major wellness program, and we're starting to see the numbers as well. And again, your peers. And as I have known Lowell for many years, and the things you learn from working together with your peers is invaluable. It's intangible. And I think you'll continue to see it with IPBC. And now, like I said, the money slides. It all comes down to the money. What we have quoted, and I can take some comments on this, is an 18-month quote starting January 1, basically at 0%. It's actually a few dollars less.
It's $46 less.
But if you add in the life insurance savings, you're going to, I'm sure there's another 15 or 20,000 annually in life insurance. This is an 18-month firm quote, You do not, none of the employees are going to be asked to fill out any evidence of insurability. It's available to the members, to the City of Freeport, effective January 1. And if you can turn to the next slide, this is the slide that I don't think was in your packet, but this is the slide I really want you to pay attention to. I tell people all the time that, you know, like I said, I've sat on outside the table for many, many years and trying to convince my board that sometimes it's that longer view, the strategic view you have to look at. And too many times we sat around before I moved to Hinsdale to IPVC in 1997. You know, every year you look at your rates and compare them to what the broker brought in and try to whittle it down. But with health insurance, what you have to do is break the trend. IPVC had a 5-year average of 2.2% on the PPO side. We conservatively estimated Freeport's at 6%. Here's what you can see over 5 years, that between deferred savings costs and estimated dividends is almost $3 million difference. You can do a lot with $3 million in 5 years. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions or anything you may want to answer.
Manager Crowe, do you have any follow-up that you want to do now?
So we met with the insurance committee. This has been taken back to the unions. We're waiting for feedback from them. If you'd like to go forward on this, I have asked for other quotes from other companies as well, but this is the best we're getting right now. But to do the 1 January, just for everybody's aware, we'll need to approve at the next council meeting the resolution to go forward and request to join the co-op, basically. Right, is that correct?
I could probably give you to the first week in October, so with a letter from you saying your intention to move forward.
Move forward. One of the things to consider is, I know that we had a rate decrease 2 years ago or 3 years ago as we went forward with the insurance. That was based upon a change in the plan design. So this is an average if you keep the plan design exactly the same.
Yeah, this is
most communities are experiencing anywhere from a last year it was a 15% increase across the state of Illinois. And with the Affordable Care Act still somewhat in form as we move forward, you're going to continue to see those types of increases. And this is a way to control that. What's nice is that we can move out of having to have the internal service accounts. We can get budgeted, and there is not the issue with runout that we have right now in the account. Where we're getting killed in the accounts is our runout out, because we have that $100,000 level. We typically, over the last 3 years, we have blown through the runout financially. So.
And just quickly, one other comment. I know at our meeting with the insurance committee, we got a lot of questions about the network. And I think your employees would enjoy moving to the Blue Cross system, a lot more freedom in their choices and getting better discounts. And that was a lot of the reasons. We got some information from your current network, TPA, and we know the network, the discounts that we can get through Blue Cross system are significantly better than what they're currently getting.
And you do need to be aware, there
it goes. All right, just had to flick it back on and off. We would be changing our TPA, which is currently with the local hospital, NHI, and going to Blue Cross Blue Shield. But it does open up, makes Monroe Clinic, makes more hospitals available in the Rockford area, something that our employees have asked, as we go forward. And it makes, basically, they have the opportunity to do a lot more choice of where they want to go. And then all of the hospitals which are currently covered under our current network are covered under this.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you. Manager Crowe, I heard you say that you'd already spoke to the unions about this, and to sell this program a little bit more to them, you're telling them that they have more freedom of choices, better discounts. What about the deductible that they perhaps would pay?
The deductible set by our plan design.
We're going to match the plan design exactly unless you tell us you want to change it.
So whatever's in our plan design right now is what that deductible would be.
Yeah, and because of the better percentage discounts you're going to get from the Blue Cross Network, their deductible is going to go further.
Follow up? Thank you. And so their out-of-pockets would match, and their caps would match, and everything else?
Yes, that's correct.
So that hopefully would be a good sell, especially with the extra freedom and better discounts.
That's the goal. We're waiting response back from the unions as we go forward.
Thank you, sir.
Manager Crowe, just one question I have, and Alderman Keister, then you can go after that. Will you be able to get the insurance committee's buy-in in time, or is this?
They're supposed to have an answer back to us by Friday. I don't know if I'll ask the police chief and if they have supposed to have met with their unions to discuss this.
They were meeting tonight with the police union.
Same with the fire union.
Yeah, I can just say from the responses at the meeting, it was pretty favorable.
ASME brought in their chief negotiator as well as the president, vice president of their union. It was supposed to be the president, but he was out sick.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Keister?
Yes, thank you. We've had discussions in the past about changing companies and going to a different company, and I'm not, with the kind of savings, I'm not against it. The question I have, or the reason we were given in the past that we didn't go directions like this, is the fact that difficulty in overlap in pay, i.e. somebody's being treated for a condition prior to the transition, and it's going to carry over into the next company. Who pays for it, and how are you going to address that issue?
Well, that was sort of taken care of by the Affordable Care Act. I mean, pre-existing conditions are completely covered. It's basically the date of treatment, whatever the date of treatment is. If it's, say we took effect January 1, date of treatment, we pick up the bills. Anything prior to December 1 is the prior company's.
We will have to have a certain level of run out though as we change companies.
But it's all based upon data service.
Right, it stays, and the run out, there's already a run out budgeted because there's a run out with our current plan at the end of the year. But so that will now go into the run out for this plan. And so we've got about 250,000 set aside in internal services for run out.
Alderman McLaren?
You assume I have some
No, I
questions.
just said,
No.
see when you start reading.
No, you're correct. Okay. Going back to one of the minor points, you had indicated that one of the pools that we would have potentially go into, which pool was that, and what was that based on?
It's basically geography. Once we moved outside the nexus of the Chicagoland suburban area, it's more from a organizational standpoint so that we can meet the needs of the people in different regions of the country. So, and in talking about strategic plans, we adopted a strategic plan a year and a half ago, and I can tell you our strategic plan was another digit on the end, more than what you were talking about. But we know that as we've grown, we have to look to the future. And very likely within 2 years, we're going to be divide the state into about 10 regions and govern 2 regions, and this is sort of a preliminary step to that. So we're, it's a way that we can effectively govern a statewide organization and have the member input and still meet the needs of the members and service the members.
Manager Crowe, you had mentioned that you had gotten some quotes back from some other local providers and other individuals. What kind of figures are we talking about? Was anybody coming close to keeping it the same, et cetera?
No, the one I'm waiting on, which is Horton, but no one's been able to match these figures over the next. And Horton, as Horton told me, Mike Wojak, who's the other big company, and he knows, Dave knows why, Mike, it's really, when we're talking about this, you're talking about services, what services, everybody's going with Blue Cross Blue Shield as we go forward, and it's really your whether you're able to go with plan design and then your savings. Their savings, where they come in, the IPPC comes in, is because they're unlike other organizations, they are the 900-pound gorilla.
We've become it, yes.
And where did the local providers come in on this?
I have not yet gotten a quote back from Diamond Brothers.
Okay. I assume you've informed them multiple times the time frame of which you were.
I informed Diamond Brothers the second week in here I wanted to go out and look, and they didn't even come back to me. They didn't think I was serious, until 10 days ago, Diane?
Some follow-up. Okay, but you'd anticipate maybe some proposal between now and next week if they're going to.
If they're going to. I've reached out to everybody and said, look, IPVZ's given the brief here. We have to make it go. I want to, sent the emails out and said, I need the proposals.
And just so you understand our timeline, our board has adopted a policy because we are bringing in 9 new members. We require a 90-day implementation so that it's done right. Your employees are happy, they know their choices, we do their homework, they have their cards before January 1. So, I mean, if we slip, we could slip a month or so, but it's, it's still gonna be a 90-day implementation. Our board is very insistent upon that to maintain the quality and the service that we expect and demand from our providers.
And I'll be very upfront about this. I know we're not in executive session. The unions want to move off Diamond Brothers. They're not happy with it.
So follow-up. Sure. Thank you. You talked about, obviously, you had a 2-point-something%.
2.2 on the PPO side.
Thanks. On the PPO side, and the estimated 6% annual on our current trajectory, or I assume based on past results and data that you have. But you also talked a little bit about the pool and having money returns to the pool. What's that dynamic of that, where we obviously have our budgeted amounts, but then at the time some funds come back? What's the formula for that? What can we reasonably expect on that based on past performance?
On the estimate, we use a conservative 5%. We've averaged 7 to 8 over the last 10 years. Now, some years maybe 12 and some maybe 3, but it's a conservative average. We just like anyway, we have really good years. We've had so-so years, but we've never had a year that's been over 100% loss ratio in the last 10 years. So we've done very well. But it's like I say, it's simple math. What our total premiums minus our total costs, whatever is left at the end of the year, we distribute back to the members on a premium ratio basis.
And you've never had a year where you haven't given something back. I think I have a few more, but let's let somebody else jump in here.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Alderman Smith.
Well, at the risk of trying to drill down too far for the purposes of this venue, so the stop loss is at what rate then?
Okay. The individual member is responsible from 0 to 35.
Right.
The pool as a whole takes 35 to 125. Then we reinsure, but it's not conventional reinsurance, over 125,000. The pool takes the first 70% risk factor. Instead of writing Optum a check for $11 million, we write them a check for $4 million, and we self-insure for the first $7 million a layer. And it's proved very successful. We have given back over the last 3 years anywhere from $500,000 to $3 million depending on the year. But
I guess I'm trying to understand what the genesis or what the source of that is. Is it just growth in the fund that dictates how that is paid back?
It's your loss ratio. I mean, you know, we're, like I said, in our rates, we're very conservative, you know, and that's, you know, probably why we never, you know, we have a lot of good finance directors that sit around the table and they, you know, we don't get aggressive. But we've been able to beat the trend. We've had, you know, we use good case management, wellness programs. It's a lot of things that have helped us keep our rates low. I mean, it's, you know, we are very proactive. We have an operations committee that's where it meets every other month that looks at innovative trends, new programs that we should be doing. Should be doing diabetes case management. We've added that. We added a cancer case management this year. All the things where costs are increasing, we try to stay on top of it and beat the trend. And one of the biggest examples is in the prescription drugs. We have a direct contract. Prescription drugs have trended 12 to 14% for the last 5 years. The highest trend we've had in the last 3 years, well, the last 3 year total trend is 16%, so we've been trending about a little under 5.5% when the market's 12.
One thought. Sure. Years ago, I used to sit on the healthcare committee as an employee of the city, and we used to hear a lot about what they used to colloquially call the state plan, which was, I gather, a similar animal that was managed by the CMS in Springfield. You are just a different rendition of that, right?
No, it's a totally different setup. Their plan is not truly, I mean, you know, this is, I mean, it is considered a self-insured plan, but it's with pooling on top of it. Where the CMS plan is totally different. Yeah, the finances are different. The risk factors, they put you initially in a tier, and you're subject to being re-rated based on your experience, and you can see some significant increases very quickly. I don't like to talk bad about my competition, but it happens.
Okay, so at the end of the day, with the proposal that we have here, and this is for either one of you, the proposal we have here, we've got for 18 months a locked-in cost with no increase. We have, going through with the Blue Cross, will provide more options than they have right now and not take away any of the options that they have with a better, like you said, their deductible gets more dollars because of the discounts they're able to provide. The pool design has some form of local control, or at least IPBC control going forward. And historically, we could anticipate some portion of the payment to come back in a dividend based on past precedent, not a guarantee, but based on past precedent. Am I missing anything in that analysis?
No, you get an A.
Good word for this.
And the ASME union rep asked us, this sounds almost too good to be true. And I mean, it's, yeah. I think this is a good way to control, the best way to control cost as we go forward.
And like I told you, the question I usually get is, what are, excuse me, I'm giving this to you myself, what if we want to leave? Well, like I said, we are controlled by state statute, and state statute says that if you want to leave, you give 90 days notice prior to the start of our fiscal year, and you can leave.
And we've given 90 days notice to our current health provider.
Madam Mayor, any comments you'd like to add or anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other alderpersons or any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Alderman Keister.
Yeah, one question I just come up with. Under the current plan with NHM, certain treatments and stuff are discounted because it's with FHN and it's done up here. Is that going to be lost now if we go with this company?
Not certain what your question is, I'm sorry.
All right, when I get my bill.
Yes.
Because I'm retiree, I'm on the plan. They show discounts for treatment within FHN system because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is there any type of discount or anything like that that we're going to be receiving from you, or once we switch to this program, any possibility of discounts like that are going to be gone?
No. we received and actually Lowell will tell you we had an initial quote that was significantly higher until we got some additional information from the Freeport or network or whatever. I'm sorry, I don't exactly know the name of it, but they came back at an average discount of 36.7%. That's what you're getting. The Blue Cross is very strong in this, and actually their offices, most of their services right over in Rockford. They have a very strong presence. Their average discount in this area is between 50 and 55%. And that's why we were able to revise the quote and come back at 0 for 18 months. Because we know that we'll have a much better financial payout than your current network.
Thank you. Dave, I appreciate your presentation. Great job. It looks as though it's a win-win-win situation. But thank you very much for presenting to us. Is your request here for a motion to move forward or continue your negotiations, or?
With this, I need feedback from the unions before we go forward. But be aware that this may be on the next agenda or on the October agenda.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dave.
You're welcome.
Great job.
No problem.
Now we can do something, Lowell, that you'd like to do, I'm sure, as a point. A couple new directors.
Yes.
So when you turn around, there's somebody behind you?
That's right. So I'd like to take the opportunity to officially appoint, come up here, Randy and Tom. This officially appoint Randy Bucas as the financial director for the city of Freeport County of Stevenson, and officially appoint Tom Kapansky as the director of utilities operation for the city of Freeport County of Stevenson. So I just need to have your two John Hancocks on this, and will be officially appointed in these positions.
Okay, we can probably turn around and show these guys to the camera. Show them their good side.
All right, here you go, Tom. Okay. So, you want to? All right. Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you, Randy. Now I feel like I'm getting my team together here. Thank you, guys.
Gentlemen, we welcome you. Tom, we had the privilege of seeing you last week. Randy, look forward to working with you. Welcome aboard to both of you. And look forward to working with you to help move Freeport forward. Item number 10, approval of minutes from the meeting held on October 14th, 2017.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Chair, I missed both, sorry.
No problem.
Who made the motion?
Easter.
And second?
Who was our second? Alderman Ross.
Sorry.
That's okay. No problem. Item 11, discussion of ordinance 2017-66, a draft of an ordinance amending Part 16 of the Fire Prevention Code, Chapter 130 of Miscellaneous Regulations, Chapter 163006, Fireworks of the Codified City Ordinances of the City of Freeport, and this will be presented by Manager Crow.
And actually, 66 and 67 go together. What it does is that we received multiple complaints after last 4th of July about the shooting off of fireworks within the city limits. And what this does is puts under the code and chapter to eliminate anything that basically leaves the ground from being able to be shot off within the city of Freeport. So we can still use sparklers, still use smoke snakes, can do those type of things within the city and sell those. And the next one changes our transient ordinance to eliminate the sale of fireworks. And I think that both the fire chief and the police chief, we've had a lot of discussions about this. This worked with the fire chief going forward, looking at other ordinances. He's not here to present, but this was a direct, I've heard from both aldermen as well as citizens about us not being able to enforce fireworks. And this will allow us to enforce the regulations within the city for fire, to prevent the shooting of fireworks.
I noticed last year as the setup was up there at the mall, more than one occasion, the fire inspector up there. And it is a safety thing, number one, and number two is there are a lot of people that are buying some stuff that's extremely dangerous, and especially younger people buying them. So, does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. Chief Barklow, I know we talked about this, and Manager Crow talked about this also, that other cities have adopted this illegality of shooting fireworks up into the air. But this does not stop people from leaving town, say going to a farmstead and shooting off fireworks if they really need to do that. It's just within the city of Freeport, is that correct?
Just within the city of Freeport, right.
And are you fully in support of this?
Yes.
I think it's a good idea as well. So thank you for your support, and Manager Crow as well.
Any other comments, questions?
Chair?
Yes, Alderman McQuinn.
Thank you. I remember, especially this last summer, getting a lot of calls, and it wasn't just the night of, it was about 5 or 6 days beforehand, or about 2 or 3 afterwards. That said, my question is, I remember doing a ride through pretty early when I started my state attorney's career. It was the 4th of July with Madigan, actually. So we handed out tickets that night. Well, he did, I didn't. But the question I have for you is, what was lacking in our prior ordinance for enforcement purposes, if anything? And 2, how does this, outside of the sales, I mean, obviously we know, just sales alone is not going to prevent something like that, but how does this address that problem?
Well, it was always a constant problem having the fireworks tent, the transient merchant here, because they would sell a lot of these particular fireworks that we were giving tickets for. So it was always kind of a contention, because we would arrive and give them a ticket for shooting off bottle rockets when they actually bought those at the old Farm and Fleet, lot. So I think that by addressing this and eliminating those kind of purchases, it's going to make it a lot easier. We still continue to hand out citations. We issued many of them during the 4th of July, and this will not completely stop that. I mean, they could go to Monroe or some other place like that and buy those type of fireworks. But I think we set a good example with this, and I think that it decreases the opportunity for someone to go out and purchase fireworks. It's historically, about 10 days beforehand and about 10 days afterwards, we get a lot of fireworks.
So largely, you think the prohibition on the sale of it is what's going to be different, as opposed to necessarily your enforcement of it?
That's right. The prohibition on the sale of these particular fireworks is going to help tremendously.
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Smith.
So there's a long litany of prohibited devices, some names I don't even recognize. Are these munitions, for lack of a better term, not already prohibited by state law?
Right. It's, we need to get the fire marshal you know, here, because they actually, you know, regulate this. But there is, if you go with the state law for Illinois, the way I understand it is are certain milligrams of powder that's allowable for a lift charge, and then there's certain grams of, you know, some sort of explosive powder for some sort of aerial show. So without reading the labels like you would at the, you know, at the grocery store to take a look at all these, you wouldn't exactly know what's in there, how many grams of lift determines how high it goes, and what kind of aerial display. So I believe the city ordinance then, when we write tickets, we write them under city ordinance instead of the state charge. So city ordinance doesn't allow any of those. And so that, then again, that makes it much easier to enforce, because if we were to go by the state law, you would need to have a chemist out there to take a look at the measurements.
Yeah, the one thing is the city ordinance, there is no regulations currently for the sale of fire. We're relying on the county. That's where he's getting a license to regulate that. Now he can go fire marshal, correct me if I'm wrong. We regulate them. The fire marshal going out there and checking, spot checking. The reports we got this year was they had what was out being displayed and stuff in the back. And that's really, the idea is the city taking control of the sale of those things, not relying on the county to be the enforcer here.
Chair. Chief Scott, excuse me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, man.
Go ahead.
Okay, Chief Barlow, what is the maximum fine on those city sites?
Well, it'd be city ordinance. I believe we amended that earlier, so it's I think going to be a $75 minimum fine immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Townsend, just a quick question. Do we know in the past, have we had many injuries from this? You know, I support it, but I'm just curious more than anything.
There's been isolated injuries, but not a whole lot of numbers. I'll get that for you.
Okay, that's no problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alderman Keeston.
And also keep in mind that with the fireworks and stuff the way they are, in the past 25, 30 years, I can think off the top of my head 2 or 3 incidences where we've had fires created by these pyrotechnics. So by doing this, hopefully it'll eliminate some of that hazard as well.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. This year, more than any other, since I've been an alderman, I can't even tell you how many phone calls I had about fireworks exploding and waking people up, and they said that 4th of July wasn't one night this year, it was 2 weeks long. So we had a lot of complaints, and I asked some of them where people were getting the fireworks, and they believed that the kids were buying them local. I don't know if that's true or not, that's just what some of the people had told me. And that's one reason why I was looking for a way to calm it down a little bit in Freeport. I mean, we offer a wonderful fireworks display, or we have every year so far in Freeport. Other communities have them. I used Stockton, Illinois as an example. They have one of the biggest turnouts for their fireworks. And I talked to one of the police officers there, and I said, how do you keep them from setting off the rocket launchers and stuff in town? And this person then told me their avenues of watching for things, anything that would leave their hand or leave the ground. And so that's why I started talking to our local police and said, what do you think of this? Would this work? I know we have had fires in the past. I actually got a call for a house fire a couple years ago, but it turned out the house wasn't on fire from the fireworks, so that was a good thing. It was just a mistaken thing. There was so much smoke in the air that you couldn't tell. But I did live in a neighborhood in Freeport where the kids were setting off the, I don't know what you call them, the launchers, where they light them and then they shoot them up in the air, and they're landing on the roof of my house. And I tell you, I was very, very much afraid we were going to have our house on fire. So I know it probably keeps the firemen busy that this couple weeks this last year with a lot of calls, and hopefully we can cut that down a little bit. Thank you.
If there's no more discussion, we'd be looking
Mr.
for a
Chairman.
motion.
Mr. Chairman, actually just a clarification.
Sure.
I did hear, I think that one of the goals, I think, is to prohibit any fireworks that go up into the air. As drafted, and maybe I'll ask for the fire department to chime in on this, one of the items that is allowed right now, and I think the fire chief said it was going to be up to the discretion of the board where you guys wanted to go with this, but it does talk about mines, comets, tubes, shells, fancy florals, parachutes. These items are fireworks devices designed to produce low-level aerial effects, which are propelled into the air by a lift charge. So if the direction of the council is to prohibit any sort of fireworks that go up in the air, then we would just need to make that change to strike that paragraph.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Alderman Bridge.
I would like that paragraph struck so that they have that parameter to look at anything that goes up in the air. I don't know what the general consensus of the council is, but that was my intent when I brought it up.
Any other comments or anything?
I'll see how it develops.
So, any other comments? We'll make that modification. We need a motion to move ordinance 2017-66 forward.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Then we have need a motion to move ordinance 2017-67 forward.
So moved.
Here. We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I haven't looked at it recently, but if the same paragraph is in 67, identifying the items we were just talking about, we need to have that looked at and modified as well?
Certainly.
It's not, it's a transient merchant.
It's right.
It's just transient merchant.
Just says we will not issue a license for fireworks, basically, in accordance with the other ordinance, so.
Okay, thank you.
So did you want to make that, we have a motion, would that yours be a second then?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Now we move forward to item number 13 on the master lease agreement and maintenance agreement, along with the combination of item number 6 with that.
Chief, you never thought you'd be guided. That's right.
Well, thank you everyone for having me tonight. I do have a counterpart. My name is Lindsay Taramelli. I'm with Enterprise Fleet Management. My counterpart is Sam Denton. He's our government marketing manager out of our corporate office in St. Louis. He did have a family emergency, so he had to run home. So you guys get me tonight. I will be brief. A couple of things I just wanted to address before going through the presentation. I know everyone has 3 items on the agenda. One item being the synopsis. This is just a more in-depth detail about the city vehicles as it stands today. I'm not going to go through this, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I am going to go through all of the models and all of the material within the actual presentation. Also, the risk analysis I wanted to address at the end of the presentation. Really what the risk analysis is showing you is that at any point in time, if the funds were not appropriated to the program, there would be no cost to the city to turn in the vehicles, mainly because of where you're at day one from acquiring the vehicle. You're buying the vehicle so aggressively that you're ahead of what you could sell it for. You're making a profit in cents if you were to turn the vehicle in at day one. So I'll go over that as well, but just wanted to address that. Any comments on that? Is that okay with the group here?
The one thing we're still working on them. When you see the vehicle makeup, there's still 2 or 3 vehicles which we're trying to nail out. Tom Dole was waiting until Tom Kapansky got on to sort that out. Unfortunately, Tom came down with walking pneumonia and has been out of the office for the last 6 days. So,
poor thing. Just to go off of that, so we are in conversation about how to get the vehicle off the ground. So really the model I'm going to show you is just more concept driven. I'll take questions. So we do not have a finalized price, all-in cost for a program for you as of yet, mainly because we haven't nailed down some of the aftermarket items for some of the vehicles. So to take a step back, so Enterprise, I'm sure everyone knows Enterprise Rent-A-Car in the room here. So we are the sister company to Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So we are Enterprise Fleet Management. So we partner with not only commercial entities, but also within the government space to drive down the total cost associated with vehicles. Now, what that looks like is different for every municipal partner, but just to give you an idea of the model before I get into the presentation is telling you, I'm sure everyone has gotten to an Enterprise Rent-A-Car at some point. Hopefully it's been for pleasure, not for insurance replacement. But I'm also confident that the vehicle that you've gotten into has had less than 40,000 miles on it. And the reason being is that Enterprise buys 1.5 million vehicles every single year and also replaces every single one of those vehicles at the end of the year as well for a reason. They have figured out, meaning our corporate office, the Taylor family, the Enterprise Holdings family is still a family-owned business, that the total cost to run a vehicle at a year's standpoint and flipping them every 12 months is actually making the company money. So as we like to say, I know we're a rental car company, but we're really just a savvy resale outlet. So that's actually a model that we have now mirrored within the municipal space. So really what that means to you, off of the state bid, you're buying vehicles very aggressively up front. You're driving relatively low miles. So selling the vehicle at that sweet spot where you do have a lot of equity left within the vehicle, getting out of it before the vehicle's costing you to maintain, the cost increase to maintain it, losing fuel economy, increased costs to maintain the vehicle, and then also keeping the village vehicles in great image. So those things are all things that have been established on the rental car side for over 55 years, that over the last 12 years we've been implementing it within the municipal government space. Any questions? I like to stop and ask questions because it is a different concept. So getting started up here, just to show everyone, these are all the items that are available through the fleet management partnership. So we do help you acquire vehicles, so going off of the state bid, financing credit lines. We do have the ability, if you'd like to pay cash, you do have the option to do a traditional finance. But really the municipal open-end lease is something I will go over in this presentation, but showing the financial impact of doing that type of lease structure, being able to stretch the funds allocated to the vehicles, being able to replace more vehicles more frequently with less cash out the door. Fuel programs, we do also offer a fuel program. I know you guys have on-site fueling here, but we do offer certain types of fuel cards, fuel programs to cut fuel costs, maintenance. Same, we're able to fix the maintenance cost over term of the vehicle, so there's no surprises in the maintenance history. You know exactly what that vehicle is going to cost you to maintain over term, utilizing all of your local shops here, keeping the business local. Vehicle resale, as I mentioned previously, we will help you sell all the vehicles currently that the city has in possession and then still going forward. Aftermarket vehicle customization, this vehicle is yours. Signage, decals, lights, whatever you decide to do, it is your vehicle. You decide what you want to put on it. We do help with license titles, renewals, anything with the plates, we do help as well. Driver safety, we do have driver safety programs if you would like to do online courses for your drivers, making sure everyone is up to speed on any type of changes within the city that you would like them to be up to date on. We do have different driver courses available. And then that goes along with risk management. But telematics is probably the fastest growing sector within the fleet world. I'm sure many of you that are familiar with the vehicles today, most of them you can actually order with an onboard now. We do offer a plug and play device. It's really taking off mainly because it goes beyond just knowing where your vehicles are. It's dispatch, engine diagnostic health. Also the vehicles you're not going to get into every vehicle every single day. So being able to see what type of engine lights are on your dashboard. Is there a check engine light? Is there a tire pressure light? Because we know everyone, we like to say, is responsible for each vehicle every time they turn it in, but sometimes that's not the case. And the best part is that you're gonna have one person that's managing everything I just talked about. You'll have an assigned account manager that's managing all of this for you. Next slide, please. So this is just going into a little bit further description, showing you that we have over 700 customers within the government space. Over 17,000 units are going to be within the government realm. Local references are in that fleet synopsis that everyone has in their hands. Just to tell you, City of Chicago, we work with different water and sewer reclamation districts. We also have City of Portage, Rock Island, just to name a few locally. There's a full list of them, and if you'd like more across the country, I'd be happy to provide those. We do have a local presence. I'm out of Oak Brook, Illinois. However, we do have offices across the country. If ever you were in need of a vehicle somewhere else, we do have the ability to locate the vehicles as such. So really what we do boils down into 3 buckets. We help you acquire the vehicles and sell them, helping control the operational costs with the maintenance and fuel, and then utilizing the cash flow benefit of the open-end municipal lease. And like I said, my counterpart, my other sales guy up here earlier mentioned, really it's the proactive support from the account management team that you would have, giving you the access to all of your fleet data at any point in time, helping you make the decisions of when to get out of vehicles. Is there a financial point that this makes financial sense to get out of the vehicle? And I'll go into that in just a second. But those are all things that your account manager would be meeting with whoever the contact is for each different division, if it's one person that handles it all, but really showing you an annual comparison from last year to this year, how much money the program has saved the city. So this goes into showing you a big misconception that we come across is looking at the total cost it costs to run a vehicle. So this is just an average, industry average it costs to run something like a full-size sedan, so Chevy Malibu in this instance. Over 12 years, assuming 10,000 miles a year, so 120,000 miles, it's gonna cost you in the ballpark of $55,000. Couple things that go into that are all these pieces within the pie. We have depreciation, maintenance, fuel, insurance, tags, registration, all of the miscellaneous. But what I want to draw your attention to is we come across a lot of municipalities that focus mainly on the actual depreciation, the cost of the vehicle. When in reality, over 56% of the total cost of a vehicle pertains to the operational items like maintenance and fuel. Because what we see is within the government space is holding on to the vehicles, because the notion is this vehicle is paid off, it doesn't cost me anything. But when you dive into the numbers, you start to see there's a trend after a certain point in time that vehicle is actually costing you to maintain. There is a sweet spot to get out of it, and that we have the reporting to prove that. So this is just a little visual representation of what we look at. So at a certain point, the depreciation starts to plateau. You see the maintenance and fuel expense start to increase. So proactively planning when we should be getting out of vehicles and helping us get on a plan or a life cycle, if you will, of how long each vehicle should be in rotation for the city. The reporting that I'll go through today is just showing you a 5-year cycle, the benefit and cash flow impact of running a vehicle for 5 years, and showing you the cost savings associated with that. So these are our 2 traditional fundings that we come across. So you can pay cash if you'd like to pay cash for vehicles, if you're comfortable with doing more of that closed-end dealership lease where you're set to term and mileage. We do offer those, but very rarely do we come across that in the government space, mainly because of the cash flow restrictions, but then also because of, we know with these vehicles, you want to put signage on them, you want to put lights. So we deal more with the traditional financing on the left with the red arrow, and on the right is that open-end municipal lease I was talking about earlier. So on the left, what I wanted to show you is, let's say the vehicle is $21,000, you're financing it over a set term, down to 0. That vehicle at the end, it says at 60 months, I'm sorry, the print's a little bad there, but at 60 months, 50,000 miles, that vehicle is worth $10,000. So you will get a $10,000 equity return. However, you overpaid on that vehicle to only get back the 10,000, so you're overpaying for a vehicle. On the right is an alternative, and this is going to be what is included in all of the analysis that I'll go over in just a second. This is showing you that if you were to take that same $21,000 vehicle, write it down to a conservative book value, that $5,000, the vehicle's still gonna sell for $10,000 at the same time frame. You're gonna get a $5,000 roll into the replacement unit, and you've kept that extra $5,000 within the city. So then you can allocate those funds elsewhere within the city without overpaying that extra $5,000. In turn, you will also be lowering your monthly payment on average about $100 a month in this instance. So when we talk about the different programs that we have to help control the cost of maintaining the vehicles, first comes to mind is going to be the maintenance. The top line item, the full maintenance program, fixes and guarantees the maintenance over the term of the vehicle. So I will tell you exactly routine, non-routine maintenance, this is exactly what it's going to cost you to maintain. Nice part is that you guys go relatively low miles. You're not doing anything more than your couple oil changes, so you are going to be able to fix that maintenance expense. So when you are making your budgets, when you're forecasting out, you know exactly what the vehicle is going to cost. We also have another maintenance program called a maintenance management that works well for the vehicles you have in rotation currently that are over 30,000 miles. Benefit of that is that they work exactly the same way, just the maintenance management program is just a bill back system. So you just get billed back for whatever you use. And the nice part is with all of this is you have access to our National Service Department down at our corporate office. It's the same way that we maintain all of our rental car fleet, as well as our truck rental fleet. Having access to all those AAC certified techs, helping you make the recommendation of, hey, we just put in $1,500 into this vehicle last month. I don't think we should be putting in another $2,000. This is a unit we should look at cycling out. Helping you with those recommendations, but there's by no means a requirement of replacing a unit. You are making the decision on that. So when we talk about Enterprise being an actual fancy resale vehicle unit, this is what I wanted to show you. So on the top, you can see that this is looking at an F-150 regular cab 4x4. This is looking if you were to get out of a vehicle at 5 years, 75,000 miles, versus if you were to hold on to it for double the amount of time, so holding on to it for 10 years, 150,000 miles, and showing you the resale impact. Top line, you get out of it at 5 years, 75,000 miles, right before you hit that 100,000 mile range for it costing you in maintenance, losing fuel economy, probably before you get into your brakes and tires, you're at $12,000 for a return. But if you were to hold on to it for another 5 years, another 75,000 miles, you've now lost $8,500 in equity. Now you're only getting $4,200 back. So this is just showing you the financial impact at the bottom. If you were to assume over a 5-year term, you take the $8,500 over 60 months, you're out on $140 just because you decided to hold the vehicle longer, not taking into consideration how much it's cost you to maintain the vehicle in maintenance and in field degradation. A big topic that actually will break down Freeport's vehicles is going to be safety. That's going to be in the synopsis that I have, everyone else should have right now. One big thing I wanted to point out is the city currently has 5 vehicles that date prior to 1998, which is going to be the standardization of airbags. So safety is a big hot point right now, especially within a municipal state. Vehicles do not have the equipment that they should have because they're just older vehicles. All the breakdown is going to be in the synopsis for you, but that's something I just wanted to outline for you to show you all of the new safety advances that have happened since 2007 to 2017. These are all things that we probably all have in our personal vehicles that the city's vehicles do not have. So what this is, and this is what the information that Manager Crow and Director Dole have provided. This is taking a look at the city's vehicles. This is called a fleet profile or a fleet replacement schedule. So if this were Enterprise's fleet, if you were our customer, this is where we would start. On the left side, this is the fleet profile. Now this is only looking at the light duty fleet. And the reason that we're only looking at the light duty fleet for this is because the next page is the next slide is gonna go over holding a vehicle for 5 years. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that it makes financial sense to get out of a police cruiser at 5 years unless they're going extreme high miles, or maybe you have a dump truck that only goes 2,000 miles a year. It doesn't make sense to get out of it in 5 years. We would recommend a different holding pattern. Enterprise is still able to fund those vehicles. It's just a different conversation, and they are not included in this model. I know that's something that we've talked about ongoing, but just so everyone is aware, I know you have more vehicles than just 28. This is just your light duty fleet that does not have any aftermarket on it. So taking a look on the fleet profile, this is just your breakdown. This is showing you of that 28, how many are mid-size sedans, full-size sedans, 1-ton pickups, the average age of the vehicle, and the average annual miles. Jumping down to the model year analysis, you can see the purchasing trends. The thing that jumps out to us is there's a replacement bubble. You have 10 vehicles, you have about 30% of your fleet or 10 vehicles that are going to be older than 20 years old. So sooner rather than later, something is going to need to be done, regardless if it's with Enterprise or if it's not. There is a replacement bubble that the vehicles will need to be replaced at some point. On to the right, the fleet replacement schedule is just a quick little replacement schedule that we put together if this were to be our fleet. I know the print is really tiny, but there's different criteria in the top right corner that's saying any vehicle older than 10 years old over this odometer, that's going to tell you what we're going to replace first. That is going to be what's slated in 2018. The next criteria is what's replaced in 2019. So helping you get on a schedule or a plan to get the vehicle refreshed, be able to drive down the total cost associated with the vehicles. So this is going to be following the previous slide. So this is a 10-year model. So what this 10-year model is taking is looking at those 28 vehicles, following the replacement schedule that was outlined on the previous page, and showing you that if you were to put all those vehicles in Enterprise's program, what's the financial impact? I know it's a lot of numbers, a lot of small print. The main point I want to make here is that your current fleet is at 28. Fleet growth, we're not telling you to get out of vehicles or sell vehicles. There's no underutilized units. So keeping the proposed fleet at 28. Your current cycle is 14.5. What that means is it would take you 14.5 years to continue, if you were to continue your purchasing trends today, to replace all the city vehicle units. What we're suggesting is holding onto those vehicles for 5 years and showing you what the impact is going to be. Current maintenance, we have at $150 per vehicle. That was backed up by Director Dole's numbers. The proposed maintenance on the light duty fleet, we're able to fix your maintenance expense over the 5 years for $24.92 per vehicle. So dropping down to the bottom, that top line number where it says average highlighted in gold, that's your benchmark. So that's saying this is what the city of Freeport, an estimate is what the fleet budget is today. You have 28 vehicles, on average you're buying about 2 vehicles a year, you're owning all 28, you're not leasing any today. Within that, your purchasing budget is about $46,000. Again, lease is zero. The $50,000 is assuming if you were to take that $150 over all the vehicles for the year, that's where you get your maintenance, same with the fuel, so your fleet budget's at $142. So as this goes through, you can see the next line, what's slated for 2018 is replacing 17 units. So you would now own 11, so there's 17 leased, 0 purchased, showing you what the lease purchase is, or excuse me, the lease budget is. You can see the maintenance is dropping because you're replacing the 17 vehicles that are the oldest in your fleet that are costing you the most to maintain. You see fuel drop, and then you see the fleet budget adjust. And then the net cash. The net cash column is going off of the column to the left and above it. So you would just take the 142 minus the 140, that's how you're getting the 2,000 on the right. So it cycles through, you can see, but what I want to draw your attention to is right at, sorry, it's really tiny print. You have a negative number in the lease column, $21,864. But you're saying, but Lindsay, I'm replacing 17 vehicles this year. How is my fleet budget dropping so significantly? Well, it's the equity from the initial 17 that you decided to lease through Enterprise. You're getting the equity return that you're replacing the vehicles with. So all in, over 10 years, the program's going to save the village $233,000. Once you take into account the estimated equity, so meaning the vehicles today that the city owns that Enterprise would sell, over 10 years, you're going to save $376,281. So really what Enterprise does is we're not here to just sell you your initial round of orders. How we differentiate from a dealership, how we differentiate from a bank, is that we are a fleet management company. Of course, we do offer funding. Yes, we offer vehicle acquisition, but it's helping you with the consultation, helping you with making the proactive fleet decisions. You can see this is just showing you it's an ongoing consultation and fleet analysis. So we're helping you fleet plan. Right now, City of Chicago is meeting with us to tell us what they're gonna need in the spring, and they're gonna take delivery of it in the spring, and they don't pay for anything until the vehicles deliver. So they're making the decisions of, hey, I'm gonna need a new landscaper body on this truck that I'm not gonna need until May. Can you help me get that? So helping make those fleet planning decisions, looking to see where we're at for equity, how much the vehicles are costing to maintain, making a game plan of what vehicles we're gonna get out and when. And then of course, ongoing, showing you how much money the program is saving the city. Should be it. And then there's another, that risk analysis. And there's another item there, just
I don't know if I've got one.
Oh, that's okay. So really, what the risk analysis is, and I know everyone probably has it, what it's showing you is that day one, you're buying a vehicle for $29,000. In that case, it's a Silverado. It's $29,000. You can buy the vehicle really aggressively because you're buying off the state bid. So $29,000 is what you're paying, but day one, in 6 months in, you decide I don't want to do business with Enterprise anymore. Funds aren't appropriated for the program. You have a couple decisions. Choices. You can either write us a $29,000 check, truck's yours, or if you want us to sell it, the vehicle's worth $33,000, you're gonna get the difference in equity goes right back to the city. So there's no cost to turn in a unit, mainly because you're buying vehicles so aggressively in relation to what they're gonna sell for. And that's it.
Paul, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point?
This gets into the concept of, municipalities used to believe that vehicles, if they held them for a long time, were assets. And it's really getting the idea that they're not assets because technology, we get that breakdown with technology is not keeping up with the old vehicles. Safety, it causes issues with safety. Fuel costs go up, maintenance costs go up. We got to start viewing vehicles as it's just something we operate. It's not an asset to the city. It doesn't have any financial background because it doesn't have any financial return on us, where this actually creates a leasing program where they are assets to the city.
Questions from the councils? Alderman Brashaw?
Thank you. Where would, excuse me, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Where would these vehicles be serviced?
Anywhere you would like, as long as they're certified in the state to do repair work. And if they aren't, we can help them get certified, or we would sign them up on our payment system.
And both the dealerships, all the dealerships in town, in the city of Freeport, are currently certified to do enterprise maintenance. And I know at one time, Art Shop was also certified, but to do windshield repair.
Oh yeah, we're certified.
Lindsay, one question I've got that I see here are most of the vehicles American-made vehicles?
It's total preference. You tell us which vehicle you would like.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Yes, Alderman Ross.
I do have a question. Do you lease one vehicle, just one vehicle?
Yeah, we can start, basically how it works is that you just have to acquire one vehicle through Enterprise and you can have access to all the programs I just mentioned.
I might need a vehicle.
We get that question a lot. Yeah.
That's what I do.
Chair.
Alderman McClellan.
Thank you. Manager Groh, you've been kind of directing us and get towards this for a few months and kind of providing us details, so none of this is of a big, a surprise to us, and it seems to make a lot of sense. The one question I have for you is, when we're going forward on this, with the capital improvement fund for the fleet maintenance, do you think that we're well situated for, obviously we're going to have some more up front, and then we'll just plan for some other years, maybe we just won't spend as much in anticipation for the fourth and fifth year?
Fourth and fifth year. Lindsay and I've talked about maybe spreading that first 17 out so that we get into a more regular rotation. As you saw, there were some years that had 0. This was just Enterprise's recommendation going forward, but we're going to look at that once we get permission to go as to actually how we're spreading the vehicles out so that it meets the capital improvement budget, as well as if we need to save it, as well as meeting our needs as a city.
Manager Crow, first of all, I guess for the audience is to keep in mind what Lindsay said. This is basically the light duty fleet, so to speak. No police cars in it, no fire trucks in it. It's four-wheel drive vehicles, cars, etc. that are in the city. I knew I had a question where I was going with this.
The biggest truck is the 1 ton, which will be set up for plow aftermarket.
Right.
Plows.
Any vehicle, like I said, we can help with any vehicle up to 26,000 GVW until we get into the CDL class. We can help with. Even into the CDL, we do the sewer division, like I mentioned, for the city of Chicago. So really, it's a case-by-case basis. But rule of thumb is anything up to 26,000 GVW, and it's complete customization.
And they do run with the police cars, but they looked at our fleet and the fact of the age of our fleet, and did not feel that at this point it was a good opportunity to move to that as we went forward. So.
This also includes, now that water and sewer is in this includes yes. Water and sewer trucks?
Water and sewer and public works and economic and community development. They have 3 trucks too.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Alderman Keiser.
Well, there's no doubt that if we can make a savings and stuff, this is what we need to go to. And I, for one, can tell you that when I was still with the city, some of the vehicles we used to drive there should have been retired many, many years ago. And I'm not talking about the frontline trucks, but the other vehicles that we use for school and stuff. What are we looking for tonight? Are we looking for a green light to go ahead with this, or what are we looking for?
We're looking forward to, we're still in fine tuning it, but I felt that Cal was the opportunity to brief you on it. The idea that in the next, either move forward and approve us to go to the fleet leasing program where we've come to an agreement, and that's why Aaron's here, because he's been working with Lindsay's to get the contract in order, and he can talk about that. And once we have the vehicles picked out and set up, we'll be coming back to council either, I don't know if it'll be the next meeting, probably the first meeting in October for approval.
Chair, one more.
Alderman Ross?
Ma'am, you said something about fuel. You can do savings on fuel. Now, this is not for me, for the whole city.
Yeah, this is for you.
How's that program set up?
So we partner with Right Express, trade name is WEX. It is a universally accepted fuel card. How it works is the rebate is 5 cents per gallon at all ExxonMobil locations or Phillips 66, so it's one or the other. So some municipalities like to just have a couple fuel cards for the instance where maybe there's a truck that runs really tight on gas, doesn't have time to get back to the pump. It's really up to you. It's just more of an, really all the programs I talked about are a la carte, so it's just a program to help with any type of rebate for anything like that. But to be honest with everyone here, on-site fueling is the best. I don't think it's something that I would take advantage of. Most of our municipal customers don't take advantage of it unless they do not have on-site fueling.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm looking for here is an approval from council to bring this back to council and approve it.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Keiser.
Motion to Move it to the regular council with recommendation for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I believe we had a question over here. No question? Attorney Aaron, do you have anything that you'd like to add to this since you've been part of the negotiations?
I will just say that I have been working with Lindsay and her team on the lease agreements and the maintenance agreement. They were very accommodating in the requested changes that we had from a legal standpoint, changing choice of venue laws to Illinois as opposed to Missouri, adding the non-appropriations language to the maintenance agreement so that in the event a future council were to choose not to appropriate money, then that there provides an out subject to certain conditions, but it does not bind a future council, for a 5-year term or however long the leases end up being. There, I will note that ultimately, when it does go to council, that would be our recommendation that the lease be approved by ordinance, so that we would just attach the lease agreement to a very rudimentary ordinance that says, we hereby approve the lease agreement attached here to as Exhibit A, but it's technically an ordinance there, so that would be our recommendation. But otherwise, the lease agreement does specify, does comport to what everything that Lindsay said.
Appreciate it. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We can move on to item number 15. So if I'm holding you late, guys, it's myself. I talked to Lowell about this, but it's a discussion of drafting an ordinance regarding salvage of items from home demolitions.
So I'll also bring Nancy up to talk about this. So we've had a long discussion on this as Clem talked about that there was a discussion. As you are aware, we've had a couple cases of where we've had one of our demo people that are doing demos salvaging the home versus what was in their contract. And we've since then we have sent out a letter to all of the contractors that says to remind them that their contract does not allow them to salvage. What we've done is we've gone out to other communities and actually looked at other communities allow salvage of our homes and actually bid it out and bring revenue back to the city. There was a program at one time the city looked at, and it was we would bid it out and we would pay people to salvage it. Well, this was, we're looking to, and I'll turn this over to Nancy to talk a little bit about it.
Thank you. The program, as was being explored last fall, involved, as Lowell said, would be a bid process, and we would actually pay someone to go into it. Thank you. Go into a home that we would be demolishing to take items out. They would recover those items and then resell them, to generate income. Unfortunately, the group that we were working with never secured any insurance for that purpose. There was a lot of effort trying to work with them, and unfortunately it just didn't happen. But just exploring it now, I think it really makes sense to look at what we have available. Obviously not every home is going to have items that can be salvaged. Quite a few will, but what we would like to do would be to offer kind of almost like a reverse RFP, where we would maybe take bids for, it could be for a period of time, it could be for a number of houses, it could be per house, to do some sort of deconstruction program, but then there would be a requirement for insurance. I kind of like that approach a little bit better than adding it to a demolition RFP, because we're trying to meet that goal of 80 houses this year of demolitions. And if we add that, it does take a little extra time, because we have to add time, whether it's a week or a month, to allow for that deconstruction. So that's what we're hoping for.
And let me add, so we've had a discussion, I've had discussions with at least, I don't know if you're involved in this discussion, Aaron, but with at least Roxanne and Steve Cox about this. Steve, because he's been working on some of our other projects. Roxanne, because she was our attorney and dealing with the cases where we've had salvage go on. And from their standpoint, it's really an ordinance their feeling was that we should handle this through the contracting procedures versus an ordinance as we go forward, and really establish a contracting procedure on how we can, number one, the demo, it's already in our contract that they're not supposed to deconstruct, but number two, actually go out and see if we can get some bids to deconstruct the homes. And other communities have done it and have been very successful with it.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you. A lot of you know this, and some of you don't know it, but one of my very first jobs I ever had was working for a used lumber and salvage business when I was in high school. A neighbor friend of my folks employed my brother and I. We were a few of the high school kids that worked there, and they did what Manager Crow said. They bought contracts. They cherry-picked them in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and the man I worked for would go and look at a building, and he would give a sealed bid to the city along with several other contractors, and whoever had the highest bid would win that contract. And they had X amount of days, and the city would stipulate how many days they had for each contract because they are so different. For example, if you did a small house on, I don't mean to pick a street, but just say a small house, it was 2-bedroom, 1-story, there isn't much to salvage and a lot less yardage. But if, say, it was like the old city hall and you went to salvage that, it would take probably 6 months because of all the fine woodwork, the marble and things that people would need to deconstruct. But if you went by a case-by-case basis instead of bidding them all out as a whole, the city would be much better off, and it would actually generate more revenue. And that my job was to label everything. So the Amish would come in and strip the wainscoting, and the contractor had to carry the insurance. And I would label everything, including chandeliers out of old mansions and things. My mother was an artist, so I was a very good drawer, and I could label things. But just so you understand, it is a money-making aspect for the city of Freeport, and some of this they could make some good income from if they were nice places. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Alderman Ross.
Okay, as we speak about salvage items on the houses that are going to be demoed, if they're going to be a cap, I mean, what are you talking about, the windows, are you talking about doors? Exactly what are we speaking of?
So when I worked with this in the past, we've allowed internal doors. They still have to keep the security of the building in place. We won't get vagrants in and out of it. It's basically the internal items, internal wood, internal copper, and that's what this company was doing for the construction company. Because that was, they were coming in and taking the internal out. That's where the value is in those woods and those copper and things internal to the house.
So basically, we're gonna, like we say, salvage the outside. I'm correcting the inside of the house, and kind of go with it from there. But no structural. No, you can't really remove the structure. But just something that doesn't endanger the integrity of the house that come down on them when they're in there.
That's correct. The other thing is when you start taking the outdoor windows and doors out, you have problems with it. Vagrants, and then Chief's favorite place is that's people store, that store stolen goods, stolen weapons, things along that line. So we still want the house to be secure.
When I talked to Lowell about this and bringing it forward, my emphasis to do that was just so we'd start conversation on this, and it's something that we can work on in a period of time. By no means would I want to step into the X number that you've got going there that are going out for bid until we got everything in the world kind of where we want it. So that's the only reason I wanted to get it in and say, let's start talking about this, so that something we can have down the line so we don't have any issues coming up.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Keister.
Curious, I can't quite understand when you talked about it, will we be having one company do the salvage and then another company tearing it down? Or would the contract would be out there, you're tearing it down, so you salvage to cut the price down? And how's that work?
It could theoretically be two different companies. It could be the same company, but they would be treated as two separate RFPs.
Follow?
Go ahead, Alderman Keesling.
I guess my concern is how much, if any, delay is this gonna put on the destruction of the property? And I guess, like Alderperson Bradshaw said, there should be some kind of time limit put on, definitely, because we don't want to have to bring in a salvage company. They take 3 weeks, and we wanted the house done 2 weeks ago.
Exactly, but it also goes to what Alderman Bradshaw had said, that it depends on the house or the structure. I mean, a beautiful old Victorian is going to have a lot more things to salvage than maybe a 2-bedroom home.
And if I may, one final, and I understand that, but my main concern is, you know, if we can save money doing this, I think it's a wonderful thing, but let's make sure that we don't also stymie ourselves, and a job that should take a week, we wind up a month and a half later still not done.
Yep, that's our goal too.
Sure. I'll keep it simple. Salvaging seems to make sense. Trust you guys to tinker around and find the right balance, and I'd say go ahead and get moving on it.
Chair, one more.
Sure.
So we do get a salvage team in there. Wouldn't it be fair to say we can just say, hey, okay, you got a week?
Sure.
Get your stuff out of there.
Absolutely.
And then the demo, if it's a 2-week demo and salvage, bingo. Because what is the normal time limit we give out?
They give what it is, they bid a time limit for number of buildings. So what they do is, like, depending on the number of buildings, the package, because it takes them to mobilize, they go from one building to the next.
Okay. So then that way we could just say, hey, if you want it, get in there and get it out, and get out.
One final thing.
Sure.
I guess what we need to do is look at it on an individual basis, because if we've got, like you were saying, large homes, it's gonna take longer, maybe they should be bid out individually for both destruction and salvage. And if we've got a couple of smaller homes, then maybe group them together. Because some of those larger homes are gonna take a lot longer, and I think an individual bid might be better than a group bid on something like that.
Every one of the demos are, we are bidding on an individual basis. We've just seen some people that are coming in with packages as we go forward. Some of the lower, we've had a couple companies that were the low bid overall, and they didn't give us individuals. They said if you want so it was 2 out of the last 3 bids that come in that way. Or this one, it's the same company, and they said we're going to bid the whole thing because it's cheaper for them to mobilize. But we lay out in the contract now what we're going to do is we're going to tell them in the next contract we want both individual as well as a group bid, because that has happened to us.
Yeah, thank you.
I would say one thing to keep in mind, remember we have houses that are tied up in court, and the minute that decision's made in court for that house to go, it's going to be done in about 2 days. So there's going to be houses that won't be part of that. So appreciate the conversation on it. Thank you very much. And wrapping things up, I'd like to welcome Randy and Tom aboard. Look forward to working with you. Thank you very much. I know from what we've heard and seen, you guys will be a great asset to the team. Scott, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Filling in. Any comments that you've got this evening?
Nothing else.
Mr. Barklow?
Nothing here.
Thank you to the other department heads. We appreciate it very much. Tommy, it's time for public comments. Is there one you'd like to make?
I wanted to tell Todd Butler, when's that ride along with the police car? You talking about it on the radio.
That goes along with the Civilian Police Academy, and that starts Wednesday.
I got my application.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, you can ride with me.
So I want to tell everybody, I want to wish Joe, pray for Joey Miller, hope he's all right, and hope he comes to city council meeting and everything.
Correct, thank you. Anything else to come before the committee? If not, I'd take a motion to adjourn. Got so moved in a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Wherever you want.
Thank you very much.
What's this?
No, sir. I'll give you 1 second.
All right,